Many such cases, it's the last thing you want is to have the chat hound you for not being on time. It's the worst thing imaginable.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what a great time. What a great time.
I know, eh? Wait, I'm doing the thing.
You're doing the bit. You're doing the bit.
You know why I say get in here? Because I remember that was from Sam Hyde's. And I'm not like an obsessive Sam Hyde fan, but like that was from when he had that Twitter account, Night of Fire.
Oh, yeah.
He did a Yahoo's Trip to the Future. Remember? Yeah, and I think like he said, it works now. Get in here. And so I don't know. That always like stuck in my head ever since the BTR days. But before we do anything else, let me show you something, Prude.
I'm all ears and eyes.
Okay, where's
Gio blinds himself with like the face of a million suns opening a new tab.
Share screen.
Oh, you're at okay. Well, yeah, I'll allow it as soon as you let me see it.
Windows.
The 1 a.m. and 1 in the morning in the United Kingdom, the moon is watching. We rise spine-wise for G. I'm never going to. Do you want me to show that on screen, Gio?
Yeah.
Are your messages showing?
No.
Okay. Scott Stevens Groiper. Outstanding.
I had to like cool my phone, so like I only have like replies on, and like I turn my DM stuff. Well, maybe I shouldn't do that, but like,
yeah, maybe you shouldn't, Gio. When I get like DMs from like 20 other mutuals, like, hey, does Gio ever answer DMs? And I'm like, dude, you have to like light a smoke signal like an Indian. You got to send him 5 DMs. You got to send this guy certified mail as if you're trying to get him served for court. If you ever want the 2-ton wonton from Saskatchewan to answer your messages. And that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, you have to add me on the TL. So I saw this notification liked by Scott Stevens Groiper. And so a longtime listener of the show finally made a Twitter account, and he's using Constant Gaius as our good friend Constantine's avatar he made. Like everything about this account is perfect. Clutch and grab. 1996 World Cup of Hockey Nationalists. 1996 was brutal. I remember Scott Stevens actually deked out Darius Kasparaitis on Team Russia. Absolutely brutal corrective power enjoyer. Normalize open ice checks on leftists. So going from the Meadowlands, that was where the Jersey Devils used to play at the Meadowlands Arena. But that's incredible. Finally, I've made it. People have listened to my my random obsessive Twitter ephemera. Go and give Scott Stevens Groiper a follow. Gio rotting 30-year-old on open.
Hey Gio, I wrote you a letter, but you ain't replying. Yeah, it's the story of Gio's DMs.
That was like that Casey Green cartoon where it was like he's in the retirement home in the future. He's still making the Casey Green comics, but like he's shoving in a mail slot, but like it's filled with like a million letters. He goes, maybe I hope I'm famous on the outside. And it's like
I hope I'm famous on the outside. It's kind of funny how we're wishing for the exact opposite. Like, I hope I'm famous on the inside, like, I'm in my little padded cell of just like mutuals and group chats. Like, I hope I'm famous on the inside. I hope I'm famous on the inside. And you're just like casually like trying to tweet out, and all that you're doing is it's like the nurse walks in with the lorazepam, and all she sees are like these like withered hands as your like thumbs are digging into your palms. I hope I'm famous on the outside. I hope I'm, it's just there's a great short story in the idea of a man who has this like, I don't want to say dissociative identity disorder, but like maybe like main character syndrome. Like, I want Shutter Island is what I want. I want Shutter Island, and the man knows like he's not in Twitter anymore, but he's just like, you don't understand, like Shattuck needs me, and then like the doctor looks at like the guard, and he's just like, dude, we gotta lobotomize him. It's fucking over. And that'd be like the perfect way to send him out. And like you just have like Paul Dano looking at you, and he's just like, "What's wrong? They're supposed to reply to me. I'm supposed to be like, my shadow ban should have been over by now." And they're just looking at him. They're like, "Come on over, kid. Step in this chair. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you. We're gonna get you linked up real quick. You can get on the internet real
that's
soon."
so cruel. That's
and then
so
all of a sudden, like it fades to black as it's just like all the devices are being smashed with a hammer, and then like you hear like the drill. It'll be good. It'll be good.
I have to comment on Gio Scotty's Christmas photo. Bro, Gio Scotty's 60 years old now, bro.
What do you mean?
Oh, that's so
And he's holding like a brick phone, and it's just like and it's just a piece of paper with like a Greek towel boy meme. He's like, "What do you mean?" And it's like scribbled on with crayon because that's all they allow in the mental asylum. And it was just like, that would be it. This is the movie that David Lynch is making in heaven.
Oh God, he's like the ancient Giga Chad in the retirement home. I used to be an ultra. I posted in the Cold Wars. Okay, Grandpa, eat your orange gel.
Drink your OJ. I remember Peter X. Yeah, we all do. Now go back to sleep. I voted in the e-girl brackets.
I remember Lucas's room. Grandpa, you're in a retirement home. You're in your own Lucas's room.
That'd be the way to go. Like it'll just happen. Yeah. It's just like, I remember. It's like, oh, look at that. She reminds me of Abby Shapiro. Who? Yeah, I don't remember. I remember that. I remember Liz Brunig. I remember the Mommy Milkers copy pasta. And it's just like, time to take your pills, Grandpa. It's time to go clock out in front of the TV.
I remember when that Groiper replied to Liz Brunig saying, "I want to like sit underneath that chair that you're sitting on." And she replied to him. It's brutal.
It's over. It's truly over. Moments like these will happen in some retirement home as you get just basically liquidated by just some Venezuelan or Asian immigrant. And you're wondering, where did my cat go? I had a cat. Then it's over.
I gotta listen to Night Owls. Listen to Night Owls.
Future Moldovan citizen fan killed Nightmare Vision. Night Owls live in 2026. What do you mean?
Peter Nemitz might
think we are. Peter Thiel was killed by a gay Saudi hitman. What do you mean? You want Thiel bucks? He's been dead for 20
gay Saudi hitman. Oh my God.
What do you mean? I gotta go to Times Square. It's like, sir, you are in a nursing home in New Brunswick, New Jersey. It's over.
New York City got turned into one giant open air prison. So.
Like Snake Plissken is real, and he is wearing like the teeth of the Red Scare girls on a necklace.
He's got like like in Vietnam they had the ear. He's got the ear of Dasha in his belt loop.
Dear God.
He's got the ear of Mike Crumps in his belt loop.
No Mike Crumpler ever calls me a fascist again. Opening a dusty copy of Best Tweets of the Year 2023 edition to Remnants.
Someone did. This is years ago. So I wonder if someone has this book. But apparently a company did do, or like someone did do, I believe it was the best NRX blog post from like 2007 to like 2018, and you could only buy it from cryptocurrency. And I think Nightmare Vision may have a copy. I know for sure T.A. Jackson has a copy, but he's like long gone. I don't know what happened to T.A. Jackson, but I wonder if like someone remembers to upload that PDF, or if Passage could get like the rights to republish it. It was the best NRX blog post. The grouper formerly known as Prince.
There's so much to work with here, Gio. It's a lot of fun.
That's like Diddy would change his name periodically. Like he was P. Diddy, then Puff Daddy, then he was Diddy. That like
I feel like each name just corresponded with whatever sick fetish he was into at the time.
Probably.
That's definitely the case. Have you been, man? It's been a weird week.
Very weird, yeah.
We were openly on the air last week saying like, well, I don't know what we're going to talk about. Maybe we'll find an article or something. And lo and behold, as we say so often on the show, we're on Twitter, so you don't have to be. And Twitter once again provided the content for more or less everything we're going to discuss tonight, which is why it's a weekly variety show, not a daily. I'd kill myself if it were a daily show.
We could do that though. That'd be great. You know, if someone paid us,
I'd have to get unemployed for that to happen.
Someone would have to pay us money to actually do that, like the Daily Wire or whatever.
I don't think I would want to take Daily Wire money there, Gio. I think I'd rather work my regular wage job before I realize I have to answer to Jeremy Boring.
What's not the Daily Wire? What's the one Oren works for?
The Blaze.
The Blaze, yeah. If the Blaze paid us money to do a daily, like an Alex Jones style radio show, and was guaranteed an audience of thousands of boomers, then I would do it. But
we would send boomers into an early mental retirement. It's just like, all these like AM radio listeners have early onset Alzheimer's. This is concerning.
The Captive Dreamer Daily.
The Captive Dreamer Daily. Martin used to.
Well, some people think Martin is working for the Blaze, but
Martin was used to do a lot of spaces all the time.
He used to do them with Smeed.
I know.
Yeah.
I miss Smeed spaces.
He did one on New Year's, I think. I caught a glimpse of it.
I caught a glimmer of it. I do remember.
Yeah.
We're not late, Cliff Jaded. You're the one that's late. No, I just think it's incredibly
late. Like
so. Speaking of online things, I want to ask the lovely people, and I know they're not listening. Maybe the intern is listening, but whoever is running the social media intern that has somehow been given the reins of the John Birch Society Twitter account.
That's incredible.
I am enjoying the fact that you're walking in here and you're like, what's up, fellow old truths? Do you remember how we're going to make anime real and bring back the Denny's Hobbit menu? And I'm just like, wait a second. Hold the fucking phone. Where did you come from? All out of the blue. And it's just like, the John Birch Society is here to let you know we've never been more back. And I'm like, I remember when you were warning me about the perils of Barack Obama and making thinly veiled references to the rising tide of color. What is going on?
One of my favorite tweets was from I believe it was from Contrary Pancake, where he said that you know how the kids have the Model UN in school? In Based World, the Model UN would be replaced by the Global Anti-Communist League, so you'd have like a junior Global Anti-Communist League. Oh, man. To which I think the John Birch Society did contribute a number of members from the American caucus of the Global Anti-Communist League. But it's funny because I forget which National Review writer, it may have actually been either William F. Buckley or George Will, that said the Global Anti-Communist League was filled with crackpots and weirdos and fascists, which I mean it was, but like, you know, based if true. So hello, fellow anti-communixonians. The John, you know what's very funny though, that, as you know, Prude, someone has to do, I'm sure like some Antifa person has done this, but like in the sort of like woke, more correct.
I like how you started the sentence with like, Prude, you can relate to this, and then start talking about Antifa. It's like, no, Gio, I can't relate to this.
No, what I was going to say, Prude, you can relate to is that, like, what I mean is like, you know that a lot of like concepts that you see even in the contemporary online right, a lot of that thinking, you could essentially just trace it back to the John Birch Society. The John Birch Society was incredibly influential in right-wing thought in North America. Like, funded David Lynch biopic of Rush Limbaugh. I think David Lynch had something to do with that. We'll talk about David Lynch later. But like, even like mainstream figures like Glenn Beck, like Rush Limbaugh, like Michael Savage, a lot of this content essentially was inspired by press releases and meetings and ideas concocted by the John Birch Society. And there's always been like every year's, like across over the years, there's always been some kind of like conspiracy on the political left to say that like, oh, the John Birch Society is like funded by like whatever, you know, like all the glowies are right wing. That's the parapolitics people, right? That the John Birch Society is this or that. But if I recall, even like the dying days of the Cold War, the John Birch Society was pretty much kicked out of like the lion's share of like conservative media in America, and they were like sort of cast off as kooks, and they were sort of like, you know, anathema as conspiracy theorists and so forth. You know what's funny? You mentioned Miami Virtue about John Millis. I came across, because of a Rodin tweet, I came across this whole account, which I believe is dead now, but it's like the archive is still up. But it stopped tweeting in like 2022. About it's, I think the account's called Paul Klein Respecter. And Paul Klein, I kid you not, was a producer at NBC that had various CIA ties that used to produce prawn videos for Playboy, but then became this like far-right ultra-Zionist that was like giving money to both Israel and Rhodesia. And I believe he had connections to John Millis. And there was this rumor by these parapolitics leftoids. There's this rumor that the set of Apocalypse Now was used to transfer arms to far-right groups in, you know, places like Cambodia and Laos and other places, I believe. So, and because John Millis had these like weird CIA connections or whatever, so it's like Paul Klein is like the nexus of like conservative media, and he had all these ties to like the John Birch Society and like these young Earth creationists.
I love the
people.
idea of this, though. I mean,
Yeah.
I think just like, could you imagine on the set of Apocalypse Now, we've actually been giving money to far-right groups to silence revolutionary. Like, I wish Hollywood was that cool.
And the way they did it was saying that the guns were quote unquote props. That's what the allegations are. And that John Millis was like the linchpin because, of course, he wrote the script for Apocalypse Now, and he was allegedly, according to these parapolitics people, he was like some kind of CIA affiliation because like
you love the smell of napalm in the morning. That was real napalm. Tens of thousands of Cambodian children died to bring you an overweight. Go on.
Alex Jones came out of the John Birch Society. Yeah, that's true. I think Alex Jones also did have connections to the John Birch Society. But so like John Birch Society, like, you know, they do have like a lot of cringo, like, you know, like Reaganite conservative type of stuff. But I think like the John Birch Society is pretty close, I think. You can't really write a history of right-wing conservative media in America without talking about the John Birch Society. So I'm researching this Paul Klein connection. Me and Default may do an episode on this, like the weird, strange connections between prawn and far-right politics. There's actually, you know, there's more than you'd think, right?
Yeah.
And of course, like all these parapolitics people, they connected to like colonialism and stuff of that nature, because apparently the prawn that Paul Klein was producing was sort of like that Reagan era, like the based white Rhodesian conquerors, you know, subduing the native women or whatever. So, you know, like, and then of course, like, yeah, it's very funny. He became like this weird young Earth creationist and, yeah, ultra Zionist. But no, so yeah, it's very funny. Things work that way. But yeah, the John Birch Society is very foundational. Like any right-wing talking point you could think of, probably like not originated from, but at least was concocted or aided by the thinking of the John Birch Society. So we'll see what happens, what they do with their Twitter account, you know?
Yeah, I would like to see more, you know, maybe postings of Dan Smoot writings or some like Bob Welch bangers. Because man, like imagine that Twitter account just like posting a bunch of stuff about like Bob Welch, especially now that like Thomas 777 is popular. You could run a whole spiel on World War II revisionism if you really wanted to, or start posting, you know, like kitschy passages from like The Politician. A novel in 1956. Well, I don't know, was it a novel or was it more of just a claim that? No, I think it was just a straight out claim that he said that Dwight Eisenhower was a communist agent. Wild stuff, but I mean, there's some bangers in here. There's some bangers. I just think that's interesting that the Twitter account has like come out of the blue nowhere, and he's just all like, "Oh, how do you do, fellow kids? How do you do, fellow posters?" More than you'd think. Yeah, if you read Substack instead of Twitter. Lex Friedman Daily. I love this name. I like this name. Thank you.
Lex Friedman Daily.
Lex Friedman Daily. I feel like we partially talked about that last week with. I had Internet Friend like make a lovely they added me and they were just like, how do you like, who hurt you about the podcast bro thing? And I was like, I have no idea because I don't talk about podcasting to anyone in like polite public company. Never ask a far right group what funds their operation. That's true.
Faye made few prawn videos. Oh my god.
It's there was that like a clip channel. I see.
There was that alt-right prawn star. Remember her name was Electra? Remember Electra?
I'm vaguely familiar with the lore.
Yeah. So I didn't know that about Game of Fae. I know that like Jonathan Bowden had that weirdo experimental film, but it wasn't prawn though. But you know what's funny is that another connection would be that there was like some schizo in Australia that paid a shit ton of money to Boyd Rice and Douglas P to make this like very gratuitous film called Pearls Before Swine. And that had like a lot of like BDSM type of themes. And so I think it's still on YouTube, the film Pearls Before Swine. It wasn't like the acting wasn't that great. It was an interesting concept of like a theory film, kind of like the Man from Earth type of deal. It was like that. It was just basically Boyd Rice talking about, cosmic pessimism or whatever. So anyways.
I know we talked about it the other day, but I really do like The Man from Earth. I like it conceptually as a film, just because I like the idea, because you won't get that made anywhere else. Well, I mean, like, I guess you could, I guess if you wanted to like fund a small project, but I mean, a well acted, just hypothetical film about like, what if there was a man who has been everything at all times and is immortal and is now desperately trying to escape a rapidly, technologically advanced society where it's just like he's going to be eventually caught. And I mean, that's sort of the implication as he flees. He tells his secret to these people, and then all of a sudden, he's got to go away, because they'll come for him. Which, I mean, I think that would be a fun sequel to write, or it's like 21, 20, and it's all of a sudden like the Man from Earth is caught, and some pharmaceutical company working with like the United States government or whoever the powerful hegemon is at that time is just basically interrogating him about who he was, who he is, how he's been evading for so long, and
if they can extract adrenochrome from him.
If they can extract something from him. Actually, it would be even more fucked up if it was just like, the Man from Earth, but like due to like their experiments, like they induce Alzheimer's and it becomes this like great like cosmic level tragedy for humanity that like the man who has been there since the beginning of human history loses his ability to remember. Like there's a lot of like there's something really good to play with there. Unfortunately, I am not the creative writer to do it.
That's kind of like the plot of The Nude Vampire, like I was talking about last week, where like they try to like extract some Fountain of Youth potion from this vampire that lives forever. That'd be crazy, because remember like the description of like how he discovered that he could live forever, because he's like, well, one day I was in the cave or we were running on the plains and people would just die, but it's like I wouldn't die, and it's like very I haven't watched that movie in years. I think it's still on Tubi, actually.
I'm actually just going to confirm it for us now that I'm thinking about it online. I guarantee you it's like free to watch on YouTube. The Man from Earth.
It's either on Tubi or Plex. I think it's either on Tubi or Plex. Let me go to Tubi really quickly.
No. You can watch the whole thing for free on YouTube. Whoa! 1.2 million views.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
It's good.
Came out in 2007, really. David Lee Smith, Tony Todd, John Billingsley. Oh, I remember John Billingsley. Like, he didn't have a lot of TV roles, and the what was he in? He was Dr. Phlox in Enterprise. He was the Quaker father and farmer in Washington Spies, or whatever that movie was called. Turn, I think is what it was called. Turn, Washington Spies. And then I guess this movie. I don't remember what else he's been in, but I enjoy him as an actor.
Interesting.
Yes.
So now that we're talking about films, I don't know. Do you want to talk about Canadian politics first? Because that's like the most boring thing.
No, wait. Which thing first? Which politics first?
Canadian politics.
Oh, yes. Let's do Canadian first. How is it going in the Great White North now that Trudeau has announced his resignation as leader?
Well, apparently Chrystia Freeland is running against Mark Carney. And Liz Truss in England has warned Canadians about Mark Carney because of his collapsing of the British banking system. But it's very interesting because Stephen Harper was the one who originally appointed Mark Carney as finance minister. But there's this really blackpilling tweet I saw by, it's called like government is corrupt, government.exec is corrupt. You know that account?
I'm not familiar with it, no.
Gov.exe is, so gov.exe is corrupt. And he's apparently doing a space right now with Maxime Bernier. So he has this tweet, 100,000 follower, over 100,000 followers at govit_corrupt. He's like one of these anarcho-capitalist types or whatever. I think like some NCAPs, they became like more based over time. But there's this tweet he said that, okay, one is that now that the Liberals are rescinding the carbon tax, that's a way to sort of like lure back in those disenfranchised voters. But at the same time, our Canadian dollar has been doing worse, I believe, since the last 9 years or 10 years or something. We're at, I think, like 69 cents to the American dollar. So yeah, Mark Carney will be brought in as like the moderate, you know what I mean? Like he's going to put the woke away. But there's this great tweet I retweeted, and I said that Canadians are probably stupid enough to fall for this. And if Canadians do fall for this year by re-electing Liberals, I will seriously consider moving to America, because even though even any base Canadian take, even from friends of, you know, people like Fortnex and Black Horse, like people that I respect, right? People that I consider their takes to be, you know, truly like S tier, you know what I mean? I think like, if they elect the Liberals again, I really can't see, as much as I am not even a big fan of Poilievre, I really can't see any faith in Canada going forward if they manage to elect the Liberals under a Mark Carney or a Chrystia Freeland. But here's the thread by gov.exe. This is how I see the next few years playing out. Carney becomes prime minister because Jagmeet Singh will prop him up, therefore delaying an election. Carney declares an economic emergency, which will delay or push an election until 2026. Then the media in Canada will declare that Mark Carney was the one who was victorious over Donald Trump. Carney wins in 2026, ushers in CBDC and the social credit system and other things. So that would be a nightmare scenario to me. That would be and here's the thing. If Poilievre gets a minority government, the Conservatives might be out in less than a year anyways. So Poilievre has to get a majority. That's the only, and listen, I'm saying this, I'm exactly like the guy. The guy's like, you know, he's like an Israel firster. He's not going to do anything about immigration. He's going to have the tax cuts. He's going to do Stephen Harper light. But will it, if Poilievre wins, will it negate a trade war with Donald J. Trump? Yes. Will he potentially kill the online harms bill? Perhaps. Will he lax a bit of the gun laws here and there? Maybe. Not that I have much faith in him. But if they elect Mark Carney, it's over. You know why it's over? Because he's more intelligent and more competent, hence more evil than Justin Trudeau. Now, if they go with Chrystia Freeland, then, you know, yeah, Poilievre will get a majority, no doubt. But if they go with Mark Carney, it will be a long, hard election slog. And enough Canadians in these major cities will be fooled by putting up this like air of like now the adults are in the room. Sort of like what they did with Kamala Harris, but it didn't work because Kamala was, not exactly bright. But what they were doing was like the whole like, oh, well, Joe Biden's, we acknowledge, we were lying to you, but we acknowledge that he's a dementia case. But, now we have Kamala Harris, right? Mark Carney's even better of a sell as a quote unquote competent adult in the room. Carney's getting good press here in the UK. Of course, because Liz Truss is totally disgraced, and anything she says is anathema, right? So the Labour-run media in the UK will say that, you know what, it's so great that a guy that used to work for us is now going to be the Prime Minister of Canada to go against the evil fascist Donald Trump. And, it'll spark a trade war with America. I mean, Trudeau went to the White House and is already threatening it, which, I mean, is so stupid because, like, really, what damage could Canada really do to America? I don't know. I think the media is lying to people. The damage that Canadians can inflict to the average American is minuscule at best compared to the damage America can do to the purchasing power of the average Canadian. That's just a cold, hard fact. And so, I mean, I personally think Trump is doing an art of the deal thing. Yeah, I remember Kamala Harris saying Giga Chad. No, if Canadians are fooled by Mark Carney, it's over. It's not going to be good for the next 10 years. And frankly, it would be a shame. And frankly, it would confirm all of my worst suspicions about the average Leaf, which I really don't, I don't want to be that I don't want to be that pessimistic. I don't want to be that black-pilled about Canadians. But unfortunately, the major cities will elect him. And I see all these Canadian journalists, these absolute scum of the earth pieces of shit that are like cheering, and they're like, oh, do you see the new poll numbers or the Liberals are ahead in a lot of provinces? It's like, fuck off. You know what I mean? I'm sorry to swear, but it's like these people are scum. They're disgusting. And, as much as I think that defunding the CBC is the wrong approach, I think rather taking over the CBC and making it based is more of a better approach. But if it means that, Poilievre's going to go in there and just basically destroy the livelihoods of all these journalists, fine, I'm all for that. You know what I mean? So, but I don't think Poilievre's even going to do that. He's not going to do that. I like no conservative, unless it's like Mad Max Bernier, no conservative in our lifetime is really going to defund the CBC. That's been a conservatard polemic for years, and it's never happened. Didn't even happen when Harper had a majority. They're like 10 years behind where they should be. Yeah, exactly, your friend. Yeah. Like the whole defunding the CBC thing's been a polemic for like fucking 15 years now. When Harper had a majority, he didn't do it. If Poilievre has a majority, he's not going to do it. So, like, just forget about the CBC issue. The best I think he could do would be firing the ideologues in the CBC. But that's about it. Listen, don't call me a shill. Don't say I'm a conservative shill. Don't say I'm like some secret Zionist or whatever. Like, I'm not, okay? I'm just saying that pragmatically, it's hard to choose. You know what I mean, Prude? It's like very hard to choose. In America, as much as Trump has a lot of how should I say? I'm tongue-tying right now. As much as there's a lot of flaws and foibles with Donald Trump, there's kind of like a very clear distinction between him and the Democrats. In Canada, it's not that way. Poilievre's not going to do this. He's not this radical reformer. All he cares about the economy, which, I mean, if he can deliver a better economy, then so be it, But I think that if Canadians are fooled by Mark Carney, it's over. It's going to be a very dark next decade, at least. So,
well, it certainly seems to me that what you're going to get is a much more pragmatic political leader.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of whoever decides to replace Trudeau or whoever gets in, from my perspective, I think that the Canadian, and again, I don't want to treat it like it's also, set in stone or priced in, but I really do think that a good chunk of the Canadian administrative state recognizes that like geopolitically they're not in a good position. Like whatever's left of, I guess, what you would call like big C Canadian interest. It's just, so what am I dealing with here? Well, I'm currently dealing with the Chinese, an unprecedented immigration system that was now going to permanently change the nature of electoral politics.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to me that like immigration is like the like go-to issue right now for
Canadians.
For Canadians. I mean, it is on the right, I think, to a large extent, but not in the same degree that it has been for us in America. And of course, like all those issues do stem from immigration. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it just doesn't seem like immigration is as big as the talking point as it is here in America with Trump. And I hope
not officially, but a lot of Canadians on the ground are feeling it. But in terms of Poilievre, no, he's like giving addresses about Venezuela and shit like that.
So he's doing the TPUSA thing.
Yeah, he's totally TPUSA pilled. Yeah, he's
doing the like, iPhone 10 Venezuela food thing or whatever, right? Like, and I get it. He puts on a good act, I think. And I say that as like a PR sort of perspective, not like the quote unquote like containment thing.
Charlie Kirk's more based than him in his beliefs, put it that way.
Kind of crazy that, I mean, not to say that like it's crazy how Charlie Kirk has come so far in the last couple of years, not going to lie. But also at the same time, it is a depressing state of affairs knowing that, I think what's the number one issue that all of them are dealing with right now? It would be what? Housing? That's the number one issue.
Housing in the economy. Poilievre, like all of his ads here in Canada, is about like farmers getting produce to market and not being taxed and shit like that. Like that's what his it's basically so I promise people I would do this just to get like a better handle on it. I will endure the Jordan Peterson interview with PP, but I was skipping through the chapters. It's all like economic issues, really. It's all like taxes and tax breaks. And I think they touch about immigration a little bit, but he really can't hammer on immigration the way that Donald Trump has.
I'm not surprised in the slightest. I mean, it's the one issue that you kind of can't touch in the way that we can in America. I mean, things are way more, I don't want to say racial, but I mean, they certainly are racial in the sense that everything's like just coded racism in the sense that like everyone kind of knows, like when Trump during the election in 20 and even now in 24 about like the suburbs, like everyone knows what that means. It's racially coded. Whereas it doesn't seem that they can talk about Indian immigration the way that we can. I mean, like Twitter has really become the only place for that kind of discussion to even remotely happen.
And Instagram Reels, apparently.
I mean, good. I mean, I think that everyone's
kind of putting all my YouTube shorts on Instagram now. I'm thinking of doing that.
I've been told countless times to make an Instagram, and I just don't commit to it. I really don't want to be on more social media than I absolutely have to be.
Yeah.
That's just my personal opinion. But I mean, do you see a trade war happening though?
It's hard to say. I personally think Trump is bluffing. He's doing it because he's anticipating Poilievre to win. But if it looks like that Mark Carney might get in there, I could see not 25%, but I can see Trump doing the sort of, what does he call it, the sliding scale of a progressive. I was reading an article about it. The sort of like sliding scale progressive tariffs that he could bump up or bump down later. And so Trudeau is threatening an equal tariff to the American rate. I don't think it's going to be 25% on things like natural gas and things like of resources, softwood lumber. But I do think that it's interesting because America, I mean, not to say that Trudeau is right, but America does have a vast number of resources, but compared to, like, for example, Canadian softwood lumber, the Americans can't keep like shipping wood from, other places forever. Canada really is the best deal that America's gotten for almost a century now. So I think that it probably will hurt it won't hurt the American consumer the way that it will hurt the Canadian consumer, but it will hurt the American construction worker. It will hurt American supplies of things like LNG and oil. I don't really it is true what Poilievre says. for being the third largest oil producer in the world, why isn't Canada like one of the richest nations of the world? It just doesn't make sense because we don't have the infrastructure, and the people that we're importing are not exactly of quality to, fulfill those various industries. So Canada has a lot of systemic issues. I don't see a huge trade war happening because, of course, Trump always does this big bombast. Then maybe he'll forget about it in a week, or he'll lower the blow of it to like deal later.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to get some kind of concession. I mean, and also it's not like the Canadian state isn't completely unfamiliar with how Trump has done things in the past. I mean,
exactly. Trudeau was there when Trump was there,
Yeah, when we did the when we got rid of the USMCA, the new trade agreement to replace NAFTA. I mean, Trump's concessions from Canada were primarily out of, I think, just navigation with regards to trade and tariffs between, with respects to, I want to say, just truckers. And then on top of that, the other big thing that America got as an advantage was the dairy industry, which of course was meant mainly to, help with Wisconsin and the other Midwest states.
Because they really can't compete with Canadian dairy. That's the thing.
They can't.
We have vastly more amounts of land and resources in terms of our dairy industry. What I think Trump should do, 2 points. One, to go back to the immigration thing. You know why Poilievre can't talk about it, right? You know why, Prude, right? Because he's...
Other than for my obvious ideas and reasons that I normally don't talk about, but yes.
Well, okay, besides that, it's because he wants to court the Sikh vote. He wants to court older Sikhs that have been in Canada for way longer. He thinks their whole their natural conservatives deal, kind of like Jeb Bush with Hispanics in the States, right? Although I will say, though, in certain places like Florida, in certain ridings in Texas, the whole natural conservative thing is kind of like shaping up with among older, quote unquote, white Hispanics. Now, second point would be, I do think what Trump should do is probably punish Mexico, because that is where the real problem is. And that commie fucking woman they have there.
Scheinbaum,
yeah. Then
don't get me started. I know.
Yeah. No, because I understand that Canada does have an immigration problem. Canada should work to secure the border, and even the way I think Trump operates, I think if they just did a symbolic thing where they build a bit more border fences, that could potentially, dissuade Trump from a trade war with Canada. Right? The real problem is Mexico. Mexico deserves everything they get. I mean, let's face it. That woman they got there, she's legitimately.
Well, you're incredibly generous to give her more agency than the cartels.
Oh well, but I mean, let's face it.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
The cartels assassinated certain political candidates for her, and she's up there. Let's face it.
She's their guy.
Yeah, she's their guy. Yeah. So, Mexico, and there was other ones. Do you remember that guy? Who was his name? Fox?
Vicente Fox. He was the president of Canada in the early 2000s under the George W. Bush administration, and now he just kind of became a total anti-Trump, voice.
Yeah, Trump derangement. Yeah. People thought he was conservative, quote unquote. That was bullshit. He facilitated. I remember when Mexico had that cartel war back in the day. He wasn't on top of that, and America gives millions upon millions of dollars to Mexico to fight the cartels, but it does
to fight, quote unquote.
Fight, yeah. Yeah. No, but Poilievre is trying to court the Sikhs. That's the whole thing with him. Is that he thinks I'm not going to limit immigration. I'm just going to bring in the good ones. He's doing the Richard and Anya
That's
thing.
what they all say.
That's what they all say. We're going to bring in the good ones.
And then soon Richard and Peter can be on a podcast together, and they can talk about how much they love trans women. Yeah. It'll be great.
Well, apparently Vivek got banished to being the governor of Ohio, where he's running.
He announced that he was running, which on one hand, I don't know if he'll win the primary.
Yeah.
And also, it's not like the Mark DeWine faction of the Ohio GOP isn't going to try its best to keep him out. Because, keep in mind, Mark DeWine, I think he's out. I think Ohio, Jack can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Ohio has, term limits with respects to how long you can be governor.
I think so.
And so, I'm hard pressed to care. In part because I think that DeWine has a good political machine. His endorsement and money is probably going to go to whoever can stop Trump, or at least like Vivek, at least. And I don't even know if Vivek is going to get like Trump's endorsement. I think the only person who's come out and said anything is Marsha Blackburn, the senator from Tennessee, who's
God,
I don't like her at all. I mean, I don't like really most, if any, of the Senate
what does
classes.
she look like?
She's in her like late 50s, Gio. If you do the fellas thing, it's kind of over for you.
Well, she's not terribly like bad looking. I'm not a big fan of blondes, but like,
I don't think she's a natural blonde.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong. Chat can correct me. I don't pay attention to what these people look like.
I know she's like, she's approximating like GOP MILF. I mean, she's not like cinema, but like, she's not that
people
bad.
are horny for Kristen Sinema, or they were.
They were.
Is
she a lesbian or just bisexual?
I think she is the cosmopolitan bisexual. I think she's the respectable. I like dick, but I can't say that as a Democrat. I'm not gay.
And for this riveting content, please sneed those super chats to Prude. We haven't chilled yet.
I typically don't until the end, and I come up with like a fake sponsor. I do the Mr. D's radio style advertisement. But yeah, so I mean, it's particularly interesting because it really seems like Trump's, in what transitional statements and bravado have been mainly about Canada, Greenland, with very little talk about Mexico. Yeah, outside of just saying deportations, and even then, that's not really Mexico oriented. It's just more like we're going to do it. And according to some headlines I was reading earlier today, he says that literally Tuesday, the 21st of January, he's going to try and do deportations.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Starting in Chicago.
There is this one journalist, Soyjak, who is like, under this law, someone who like violated a turnstile by jumping over it, who is illegal, is treated the same way as a murderer. Good. They're both
they should not be illegal
here. Yeah.
It's that simple.
AJD Henry, my good friend, Trash World Citizen, he replied to this person saying that, first of all, would you want someone who is illegal in the country who is stupid enough to risk the law over a $3 subway fare? Like, that's not a very brave. I know, like, listen, okay. I know the argument. I know in New York City, in Chicago, people jump the turnstiles all the time. I know the argument. But if you're illegal, why risk it? Are you stupid?
No, it's because they know in places like New York, they're never going to get in trouble.
Right. But if Trump sends the National Guard in or whatever.
Well, then that's a different story.
Well, that's a different story.
And let us be hopeful that, he does something. I think he said he's going to do 200 agents.
Yeah.
And which I don't think is enough.
I don't think he's going to, like, I mean, I'm skeptical of how big the number will be, but he's got to at least deport like all the hardcore criminals. He's got to
start somewhere, because if he doesn't do anything, I mean, like, immigration was the reason why people voted for him. Like, you can talk about all the other shitty reasons or why so-and-so is awful, but I hate to break it to you. I'm the only issue that matters to me is immigration. That's the only issue. And until that changes, I don't really care about anything else.
Yeah.
That's it.
Gio Milfichetti.
That's a good one. I'm a fan of that.
That's a good one. Yeah. No, but I mean, yeah, I think like, don't they have like some ridiculous
MILFs at the Panda Express?
Yeah, well, you could be working with them. Yeah, you could work with the MILFs at the Panda Express. No, but isn't there like some ridiculous number? Like, I think like 30% of the prison population in California is like at least like suspiciously either outright illegals or they have like faulty paperwork in terms of immigration status.
I don't know what that data is. I have not seen it, although I'm inclined to believe it.
Yeah.
But I don't. It's spiritually true, but I don't know how accurate that is.
With America's crowded prison population, I don't know why you wouldn't just deport illegals who are prisoners. I just don't.
They can be free in someone else's country. That's the better alternative than being in mine.
Yeah, they could
do what El Salvador did.
Yeah, there you go.
Just let them flee somewhere else. You can be free, and I don't have to put up with you.
Well, I believe I remember one like Democrat like talking head. I think this was on like CNN or something, maybe MSLSD, where they said that the reason that there's illegals in the California prison system, they said that like it's actually an own to Republicans if they release them to like kick them out, because they said that there's been a number of illegals who are criminals who have just like re-hopped the American border and who have like killed women, for example, in America.
Oh yeah, there's a headline about that like every other day.
Yeah,
where it's like so and so has been reported for illegal reentry like 15 times.
Yeah, and so they said that isn't it better to just make them serve their prison sentences in America? But I'm like, for all these leftoids that talk about carceralization, why is America now the world's prison system? That doesn't make any fucking sense. That doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, why should America house vicious criminal unless they want to give them the death penalty? That's different. You're gonna take out the trash. Take out the.
I'm a prison abolitionist, Gio, and you're just speaking my language.
No, but like for example, if you're not going to give them capital punishment for murdering women,
why have them?
Yeah, exactly. Why have them? Oh, but they're like, but see, they're gonna serve a prison sentence, whereas in Mexico or El Salvador,
they would have just been killed.
Yeah, well, in Mexico,
that's not my problem.
Yeah, not my problem. It's like the refugee thing. That's like what Annie Slat said the other week, or it was a year ago. Why is there refugees from Afghanistan? What are they doing?
That's but question.
They're gay though. Oh, but you mean the Bakaba?
Yeah, they're gay. You mean like the ones that would do little boys that like the American government was told not to do anything to?
Yeah.
That's curious.
Like, I'm sorry, if you're in a country where you're not overtly persecuted, like, okay, Syria, that's a different story because they've been at war for like almost 20 years. But still, like, to go in Europe is incredible. They should have just housed them in Turkey or wherever. But like,
it'd be a little different if we were talking about like a group of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, my immigration restriction position is occasionally limited to things like voting patterns and I suppose religious affiliation. I'm far more inclined to be open to like a group of Syrian Christians than I am.
Yeah, or Alawites or whatever,
than anything else. But even then, on very limited circumstances, and I would be very much more for, safe third country status like we had.
That's what I mean. Yeah, not in America or Europe.
They don't need to be in America, but we should be promoting that kind of stuff and being like, listen, if Greece can take it, I don't even want that to happen to Greece, to be honest. I mean, it's a fucked situation. Other than 10
out of 10 Persian Aryan women can immigrate.
Oh yes, the waifu immigration policy.
Jelani is a pro-diversity jihad according to UK press.
Are we now?
God, what's funny though is that there's a lot of like Muslims, even in the E-right, that talk about Jelani, and they're like, well, see, they're not really persecuting the Christians. Like, okay, number one, wait for it. Number two, they're really persecuting the Alawites. They're like literally hunting them down in the streets.
So, I think they're more concerned with killing their immediate heretic, their idea of heretic friends.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, but
the point being is that the legitimate refugees should get primary third country status. But when it comes to like the vast majority of people that apply for refugee status, like, why are you like, okay, are you fleeing Afghanistan because you're like a Christian or whatever? Oh no, because of my because
my predilection for little children.
My predilection for little, exactly. So it's like, it's incredible. Or like in Mexico, like I'm fleeing Mexico because I'm a refugee. Oh, is there a war going? Oh, there is a cartel war going on in Mexico.
But they own vast swaths of territory.
Yeah. So it's like I don't know, man. But then the problem is though, is that the system itself has let in so many bad faith actors, for example, from South America, that end up becoming sicarios or mules or whatever. So it's like there's been people that have been applying for refugee status in America from Mexico that go and murder a rival cartel member who's living in America. That's happened. You know what I mean? The system is broken. You know, it's just like it's incredible. You know, so
I mean, the system's been broken for decades. It's not gonna.
Yeah.
That's not going to change anytime soon. The question's really just going to be, okay, will anything meaningfully? And I mean, that's really all that this is. I mean, the inauguration is in a couple of days. It's happening sooner than I mean, it's literally this Monday. So over the weekend, it's going to happen. And I find it kind of funny that it's happening on MLK Day. It's a shame. There's this very old Family Guy joke where it's like, sorry, we can't show you the daycare at Fox News headquarters because most of the kids are off for MLK Day. And they're like, it's not January. And they're like, yes, but at Fox News, we celebrate the day he was shot. And it's like, this is a very older. This is an older episode.
Like that's, which is incredible.
When the jokes were good.
Yeah.
To say the least, when the jokes were good.
Yeah,
but I'm like, I mean, that's a good joke. That's a good joke.
But you know, Fox News, they like worship MLK. So
well, everyone does now. It's the great unfortunate aspect of this.
Like that. Remember the McNaughton painting with like MLK with a MAGA hat, and he's got.
Oh yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that was just like some AI BS, or it was like MLK. No, it was would have loved MLK.
It was an actual McNaughton painting.
Oh, it was. Oh my gosh.
He took the time to paint MLK with a MAGA hat and with a rebel belt buckle. It's incredible. But no, another point too, it's almost like, okay, have you seen this? There's this tweet by Solis that went super viral because all these leftoids are pouncing on him, where he said that America is kind of like a reverse empire because it doesn't really extract wealth to benefit the American citizenry. And of course, people were.
I hate to be that guy, but isn't that like a BAP talking point from like 5 years ago?
It is. But so this leftoid replied to Sula, and the book is called. I have the cap. The book is called "How to Hide an Empire" by Daniel Immerwahr. How do you pronounce that, Prude?
Deportable.
Daniel Immerwahr.
Yeah, it's pronounced deportable.
Fuck. Oh my god. A History of the Great United States. So the thing is, though, I understand the leftoid arguments about how the American global empire sort of loads IMF loans and cheap currency up to these countries and then siphons off their wealth. But the point being is that Sula was correct. He may have ignored the sort of like critique of neoliberalism that all these like parapolitics people do, but he's spiritually correct in the sense that the American empire does not really benefit the American citizenry. And people could say like, well, you know, what about like the slave labor shops that produce cheap goods, and what about the cheap resource, blah, blah, blah. But the point being is that the average American, like the quote unquote pillbilly, as the Sacklers call them, are they really benefiting from this operational wealth extraction through weaponization of things like IMF loans that only really benefit the top select globalists and corporations? The average American, the average North American, the average European certainly does not benefit from that system. If anything, it's happening to the Europeans, right? So is America really, okay, the American government tanking the European economies because of Ukraine, is that translating into like the Roman Empire where they're sending gold pieces and baubles out to the average citizen? No, you're not getting your you're not getting your piece of the German manufacturing.
Yeah, you're not getting your denarii. I promise.
You're not getting your denarii. Yeah. It's not like Biden's going out there and handing out Krugerrands to people in buckets. It's not happening, you know? So it is true what the leftists say that America is not exactly a reverse empire. It's just that the beneficiaries of that imperial action is not you. It's other people. So There you go.
Yeah, the big club and you're not in it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Many such cases.
So no, but I think like that book is interesting.
But don't worry, guys. You can stuff some burritos if you really want to.
You want to talk about that before we talk about David Lynch?
We can. Let's finish the show on David Lynch because I feel like that's a little more lighthearted than virtually everything else that was on my docket this evening.
I'm probing my Cole Report bookmarks on Twitter right now because there's a number of tweets that people have.
There are so many great takes over the last couple of days. You guys like fast food? You remember when like 3 weeks ago we were talking about slop? Remember when we were talking about slop?
Yeah.
Or like Gai Chow, or like boy dinner, and all these other like cringe Reddit-esque phrases about shitty food prepped. I mean, these normie terms that even my normie choir director roommate does not knows, and we joke about. And he's not online at all. He's a very guy didn't even know who David Lynch was. Bless him. He's only seen 3 movies in his life. He is truly the ultimate sensitive young man. But it's funny to watch all this play out, and it's just like we spent Christmas and like all the way into New Year arguing about H-1B visas.
Yep.
And it's just like now we're talking about the economy. Didn't we run an entire election saying that the economy was shit under Biden?
Yeah.
And that inflation is shit under Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And we have we're going to do the whole ye old pull yourselves up by your bootstraps debate.
Yeah, so Rufo and Cernovich have been going crazy. Yeah, that's true.
Yes, Cernovich, the man with a significant lump sum divorce settlement, a man who has sucked dick.
Did he really divorce scrape his wife? Is that true? He reverse divorce scraped his wife?
I don't know if it was that, but.
No, but like he had a settlement, like.
I
mean, he's a mutual. I want to bash him too.
Your mutuals with Cernovich. Well, that's good for you.
Oh fuck! I feel guilty by saying that now. No, but anyways, I don't want to. Let's just talk about like what he puts out there rather than the fucking drama.
Well, I mean, this is nothing but drama.
I know.
I hate to break it to you. This has been the most drama-induced discussion we've had in a long time.
You know what's so funny is that Cernovich has been posting even more obnoxiously and even more like tone-deafly than Rufo. But for some reason, I just dislike Rufo way more than Cernovich. So like, I don't know, man. It's just like I will admit Cernovich has been very childish and juvenile during these past week. It's been. But he does that. He kind of like AA, like he does that as a bit. You know what I mean? Like it's pro wrestling to him. So, but the stuff he's saying is like objectionably abominable. Like the whole like, are you too good to do this? Like it's I mean, if the thing is like if my people have built something, and I'm the heir to it, it's not that we're lazy. I mean, it's not that like okay, here's the disconnect, Prude. But did you want to say something before I rant or no?
I have a lot of things to say, but I'm going to let you go ahead and go first, Gio.
One real quick rant before you go ahead.
Yeah.
Ranting all episode. So, works 90 hours for your 400 square. Well, listen. Can you put that up again?
Yeah.
Listen, Bill Parker. Did you know that you can expand your room with galvanized steel? And you could cover that galvanized steel with eco-friendly wood veneers. And you could put a shawarma shop in the front. Did you know you could do this? You just have to go to the scrapyard. You have to borrow screws from your aunt to secure it into the wall. And you can expand your room. You could put a water tank in there for a toilet. And you can have a shower head over to. I love those TikToks.
Remember, you just gotta walk up to people and give them a firm handshake. Just a firm handshake and a copy of your resume.
Whoa, that's a good super chat. Listen, you have to borrow secure fitting wall screws from your aunt. You have to get eco-friendly wood veneers. and you have to pad the bedroom. You have to pad the bed with padding so it's comfortable, and you could put your weight set above your head. I love those.
That way, when it shakes and there's an earthquake, it can just crush you in your sleep and end your miserable existence in your nice little prison cell wall made of eco-friendly veneer and galvanized steel square.
Yeah, there's just
remember, when you decide to get upset at your proletariat conditions, and you look online and you understand that the world is going to shit. No, just know that if you decide to Aaron Bushnell yourself, that you will never burn as bright as it takes to melt that galvanized steel square.
Are you doing a rusty coal?
Just a little bit. Just a little rust coal there. I'm having fun. I'm having fun tonight.
One of the best ones, like, I'm in my 20s. Here's what you should read when if you're in your 50s, and then it's the quote from Rust Cole, where he's like, I think you should redact yourself. That was so great. But anyways, yeah, I'm referring to the YouTube stuff. There's like literally hundreds of videos on YouTube Shorts and TikToks of like these Chinese animated AI videos where it's like renovating the room, and it's all about like galvanized steel. And the favorite one was when the wife has 1,000 children, and they're like building like a huge complex for 1,000 children, and there's like some kind of like Chinese god in the middle that they could pray to every day. Oh, that's the best. That's the best one. No, but what I was gonna say is that oh my god, I'm so parched. When
he's so parched. He's got the vapors. It's over for him. It's over.
Oh boy. When it comes to this debate, I think that
is it really a debate? Honest to God, I think at a certain point it stops being a debate, and it starts at one point it started being people speaking past one another on a variety of issues.
Well, it still is.
Well, I mean, it's a debate, but and to some extent, yes, because there are some.
No, I mean, it's just still people talking past each other.
There are still some cooler heads that can speak and understand and hear the other side. Most people, yes, are speaking past one another. And at a certain point, there's somewhere at a certain threshold of self-awareness where they know that they're speaking past each other. And I think most of the heads that have been talking about this know that they're speaking past each other. But they are adamant because they have platforms and followings and donors and millions of dollars and revenue streams and patrons and etc. that they've got to make it clear that way that they're being heard. And so we're not only going to speak past one another, we're also going to speak poorly of one another. And we're going to belittle, and we're going to hit each other with the chair, with the ladder, to ensure that any degree of trying to help out the younger people are thrown off the side of the wall as if all of a sudden that's all that it's going to be. And they'll say, long live the king, and their millennial Disney animated sort of references that they have as their frame of reference to talk about things. What's incredibly frustrating about all of this is that if you are someone who works in the cities, or if you work in flyover country like I do, and full disclosure, before anyone decides to go after, a sense of entitlement for you, I don't have one. There are some things that I would like to have in life, but I also know that as a man who is 29 years old, I've made some mistakes in my life, and I am trying to fix them, and I am trying to work my way to get back to them. I am steadily employed. I do this on the side for fun. I'm active in my church. I make a pretty solid salary, despite it being a government salary, working in local government and economic development. I talk to young people all the time who show up to government meetings, who show up to these citizens action, things and things like that.
29-year-old old man, yeah.
I'm 1 year away from being the 30-year-old boomer meme, and I expect my audience to make fun of me and roast my ass over the coals in a little less than a year. Now, when that day comes, we'll talk about how my youth is over. It's time to die. It's so over for me. But until then, the key thing I hear from a lot of younger guys, and I'm talking 25 and under, the meme about men living quiet lives of desperation is never more true than when I hear things from men when they talk about trying to just get basic necessities done. Now, this is on top of a side debate that happened even prior to all of this discussion about working at fucking Panda Express or Chipotle, about work. And we talked about this last episode between Mimetic Sisyphus, Solion, and others. But, they're, like, well, why should we aspire? Like, why? Well, like, congratulations, you want to be a wife guy, you want to be married or whatever. Like, that's like the bare minimum. But when the idealization, and I'm talking about like desperate romanticism, not just infantilization or idealization, but like when desperate romanticism to attain basic things that your parents achieved, and then all of a sudden we're being told that downward mobility is the challenge that lies before us. On one hand, no shit. But on the other hand, no, I mean, don't you think that this is a terrible sign of events and times, that the bare necessities of marriage, family life, family formation, and being able to steadily provide for oneself and their, kindred is almost impossible in the current conditions that you may have been a part of growing up and voting for when you were an adult and part of a system that radically dispossessed the young and sold them out to foreigners, deindustrialization, replacing them with cheap slave labor via the H-1B system? It's like, While it's easy to talk about things for, dick waving points and measuring contests on the social media aspect of it, all these things coincide to one basic point. And every thesis, I think, that has been discussed on all sides of the issue, ironically, have all come to a similar conclusion. And that conclusion is that this generation, Zoomers, Gen Alpha, Millennials to some extent, are going to be the generations that have now recognized that the dream, quote unquote, has been swept out from underneath their feet. The things from COVID, I think, financially are going to deal a lot worse with the global financial crisis of 2008, in part because America never recovered from the global financial crisis of 2008. We've been doing money for nothing in terms of interest rates for well over 10 years now, and we've been engaging in a system that is still allowing immigration to get worse. And of course, it's not really going to change. I don't have any hope or optimism from Trump. I don't see him being the great white hope or right-wing Prester John, as I've ranted about in other episodes of the show. But it does illustrate that these key civilizational issues are the only things that matter and that are being discussed. And so what are we supposed to do? Well, there's people want dignity. And I think that's really what this has been more of a fight over, metaphysically as well as just politically, is that there's an aspect of dignity. And if one has to be entitled to dignity, being a person born as a citizen of their country that their parents had been a part of, and their grandparents and their great-grandparents and so on, doesn't that just illustrate the absolute betrayal of that system?
Yeah.
The absolute betrayal of the country that has come on and to allegedly call itself this great thing, only to have its inheritance sold out from under them, and for us to see this great culture of hopelessness emerge. Everything is really about death. And I really wish we would talk about the book Children of Men more, not the shitty movie that has an obvious third worldist great replacement bent, but the original book itself is actually deeply analyzing a question, I think mainly about, a de-Christianized Britain. But the question of the book is like, well, what do you do when you know that there's no future? What do you do? Well, I mean, the parent.
You go crazy, obviously.
You go crazy. You go crazy, obviously. You idealize pets. You have christenings for your pets. We have the soy-lennial couple who has the whole
all day,
Bag Wars t-shirt on, while the Quirk Chungus girlfriend realizes that she's not only her mother, but she's on enough psychoactive drugs to make her forget that she's her mother as they adopt another dog in order to do so. It's really interesting. I was on this trip to a certain city earlier this week, and we drove up Sunday night, which is why I had Friday off today, which was nice. But as we drove up there, I'm listening to my coworker, who's a few months older than me. He's 30, and he's talking about his wife and how they just got a second dog. And a little bit of me kind of like died inside, because I think it's a little particularly sad. Like, you make good money, your wife makes decent money, but like neither of you thought about having children, and yet you both go to this sort of like charismatic evangelical church that seems to be very pro-life in the instance of family formation and marriages.
Yeah, it seemed to be pumping it out, no? If they're being
you would think that they would be joining the club, but neither here nor there. It's not my place to judge or to offer business, but I did have that moment of, I fell. I did judge slightly, and I mean, I'm not any better. I mean, I hope to get engaged later this year, but I mean, the point being is that like, I see that, and it's just like, so where's the hope for the future in that point? Because even where I live, so much of the overgrowth of the cities from all ends has been slowly creeping and expanding like a metastasizing tumor, in part just because Texas's population keeps getting bigger. And I can't help but empathize with the Zoomers, knowing that they got a raw fucking deal. And not only, depending on what year you were born in, you were already born in a minority as your own country, despite being the country's quote-unquote majority. There's that anger. And the rage is entirely justified. And I said that earlier. And I'm sitting here at this like federal training that I have to go through and listen to all these environmental regulations, all these like contractual review things, all these policies about money and bookkeeping and construction and buy American, build American, da 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 da. And all I'm thinking about this entire time in this debate is that everyone I'm surrounded by are all older than me. Very few young people where I'm at. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm in a really hyper niche specific part of like government work, which I totally expect and I understand. There's not going to be a lot of young people there, but it was just particularly interesting to see that the system is being carried on by its elderly. It's being carried on by Gen X. It's being carried on by people who are my parents' age or even elder millennials who are entering their mid 40s. And it's just this really kind of like soul crushing thing where you're just like, wow, there really is nothing really here to look forward to except the mindless machinations of navigating bureaucracies and hoping that somehow you can scrunch up enough money as a city or a town or even as an individual to somehow make it. And then to sort of just be told, well, why don't you just like go work somewhere like Chipotle or Panda Express? And I think it's particularly interesting that even in America's mainstream slop pop culture, the idea of the well-educated man working at a fucking Baskin Robbins has been enshrined in the Soylenial MCU world of things.
PhDs working at baristas and
Baskin Robbins baristas. And now I will say this: there is a tiny, I don't want to say tiny, but there's a smidgen of truth. There's a grain of sand, a kernel of truth, and some of the things I hear boomers say about millennial and Zoomer spending habits. I think that a lot of that's
true.
There's a lot of truth to that. A rentier culture, a rentier society, and I'm a renter. I don't like it, although I am squirreling money away to hopefully buy a plot of land or just wait out so I can afford all the executor stuff when it comes to inheriting a house. But that's my hope. I'm also looking for, better work to, or more jobs and things like that. But I mean, I don't mean to say.
The thing is, you got two brothers to compete with too when it comes.
Well, I'm not too worried about that. In part because both of them hate where they came from. And one of them is fine for himself. He works at Los Alamos. He'll be doing quite well for himself. Yeah. But I mean, the long and short of it is that I'm witnessing all of this, and I get the dispossession. I get the feeling of wanting to be more, that I was robbed of something. And I don't think it's necessarily entitlement when you're raised to play by a system that is fundamentally stacked against you. You play it anyway because there's no real other way to climb up the ladder outside of winning the lottery or that.
Well, you can geomax. You can move to a third world country and be a king, and
you can be a basketball
like
bro.
Remember that guy that left YouTube? That fucking deranged MGTOW guy. What was his name? Lux Maximus.
I'm vaguely familiar.
Where he talked about like androcentric coom shots and shit like that. How you should Hormax. Like that's like, yeah, unless you want to like go and like live in Thailand as an expat, as a sexpat, then I used to go ahead, Prude. Yeah, sorry.
I just kind of find it. That's just a little funny.
I think he left because Tom Sugiura's podcast like ripped him a new one for this like video he did where he's like sniffing some broad's panties or something like that. Oh, man.
I'm pro corporal punishment, just for the record. I'm pro corporal punishment for shit like that. I think that things like that, upskirting and all that jazz, things that, and maybe it's my European sense of chivalry or whatever, but like, sorry, dude, like, you're being a public menace or a scholar on the subway. Like either, Mr. Penny comes for you or you get the key. Although I'm glad he's out. He's riding the train again. He's got a girlfriend. He was at a New York Arts Gallery.
Oh, that's good.
We salute you, Mr. Penny. May you live your best life. And I don't know. He was visiting one. He was just there. You can look this up. He was in New York. It's the place he calls home. Yeah. It's just, it's good to see. So out of all this debate, it's people talking past each other. It's the elderly shitting on the young because the young do not have the same standards or the same.
For once, it was the old having to go at the young, like
the old having to go at the young, and it was incredibly frustrating. But rather than, and again, I think that a lot of this could have been abated if the elderly were said, we have solutions, but instead, conservatives just tend to do what they usually do. And I think it was Aristophanes or someone in our mutuals pool of friends, Gio, had said, imagine the left raising all this money and activism simply being telling their like voter base to go fuck themselves. Like you would never see that. And I hate to do the like imagine if the roles were reversed here for a moment, but it just illustrates why you and I are not conservatives.
Like, okay, they don't tell the left to go fuck themselves. It's just that the things that the left cares about, it's almost like the reverse of the Kansas thesis. The things that the left cares about does not aid their material conditions. In fact, it hurts their material conditions. It's
Yeah,
just
but
that
they feel good about it.
They feel good about it because they themselves are degenerates that want to have their quote unquote rights secured. When the Democrats will sell them their voter base out to the same neoliberal system as Republicans do to flyover state conservatives. It's just that the left loves it because they have all of their cultural issues addressed by AOC or whatever. So, but anyways, yeah, go ahead, Prude.
Remember how good it feels to have your sort of social issues addressed, and how good it feels when you're like being heard. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh yeah, but like on the same time, you're gonna get slaughtered in terms of like safety,
we're the
rent,
same old
and
corporate
finances.
whores.
But if the chuds suffer first, then I'm okay with it, right?
That was like that one line from Dilbert, the animated series, the call center guy that was like right next to Dilbert's cubicle. He was trying to get his computer repaired. He goes, "My greatest hope in life is that climate change kills all the rich people first." That's like literally the logic of the leftoid. It's like, well, as long as the chuds die first, I'll be cool with it,
Yeah, as long as those evil racists get what they deserve first, then I guess I'm okay with whatever happens,
No, because Democrats are still they're the same old corporate whore. Like people like Sean McCarthy are correct. Like the Democrats are just like the same old corporate whores as like the Republicans.
I enjoyed him apologizing the other day.
Yeah, that was funny.
Like, you're still awful, but it was nice to see you apologize.
Remember that one? Well, I like Sean McCarthy, but like, remember that one tweet by Sean McCarthy where he's like, Republicans will just go out there and randomly call like some random Democrat politician a PDF file, and 75% of the time they're probably correct. Like,
yeah. It was it a Washington Post cartoonist that was?
Yes, it was a Washington Post cartoonist.
Yeah, they had a Washington Post cartoonist. The I guess the male version of the dismantler phenotype.
Mm-hmm.
He had been arrested for possession of CP, and rough.
Yep.
But I can't help but laugh.
But you know what's funny? I mentioned Dilbert because apparently Scott Adams has also been like chiming in on the boomer posting. Unfortunately,
has he?
Yeah, I mean, but come on, let's face, he's always been
things I'm not surprised by for 500 here, Alex.
Oh man, but no, that was a good rant because I think like what I was gonna say,
it's just spite. I mean, really, a lot of this is boiled down to at this point
spite.
Is just pure spite.
Yeah. No, but what I was gonna say, Prude, is that I think two things. Okay, the one thing you said was correct because the problem with the framing of the debate is that entitlement by younger people is such a common theme. It's such a common cultural trope, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that when it comes to like physical material conditions, it's not like they're okay, like where they're correct, but like for the wrong reasons, and they're not correct in their conclusions with that. The boomers and all the people like Chris Rufo and Cernovich and fucking Scott Adams, they're correct in the sense that in terms of like material wealth, yes, average Americans and Europeans are not starving.
Correct.
And we have correct. But when it comes to like a lot of the artificial manipulation of the system stacked against the average younger person, that is also correct. So there's a vast sum of wealth, but you're not going to get to have it because, corporations.
I'm not
and
starving. Everything is either for rent or for subscription.
Yes.
And I'm also competing against not only a labor base that's domestic, but also an immigrant labor base that shouldn't be here to begin with, but is incentivized because they don't have to pay, Ranjish as much as me.
There was this great Fortnex tweet thread about.
He's a great poster. We need to have him on when we get closer to like Canadian elections.
Well, there's a great thread he said about the Indians, how you're never going to compete with them. They will degrade themselves in any metric to like basically, So, but he'd said other colorful things about the Indians. I don't think we could say on YouTube, but like,
oh, of course,
yeah. But the point being is that the response by the boomers is that, oh, well, you're entitled. How dare you think that you can like work against the world because you happen to be born in America, or you happen to be born in the UK, or you happen to be born in Canada or Italy or France or Germany or Liechtenstein or wherever.
Yeah, very interesting inverse of the American exceptionalism argument, because like the OG American exceptionalism was incredibly racialized.
Yes.
And it's been abandoned for this like multi-culti
but that's my point,
quasi-globalism. Yeah.
Is that the average like conservatard Reaganite that believes in this whole like pro-capitalist, put yourself up by your bootstraps type of deal, they are to the right side of that liberal political spectrum in the sense that they are playing into the same old leftoid anti-white arguments by saying that, well, I remember here's the thing, Sargon of nowadays would never say this, but Sargon of 2015 against the alt-right said, he goes, well, just because you're born in a certain place doesn't mean you're entitled to anything. Your ancestors did great things, but you didn't do great things. But now Sargon has turned around and said, well, actually, that's a ridiculous argument. Because if as an ancestor, or rather as a successor to your ancestor, does not that mean that you are entitled to preserve that civilization or to preserve that wealth that your ancestors fought for? But then the leftoid would say, well, but you stole that wealth from the third world. And the third world would be magic and glorious in Wakanda and would be an Afro-futurist society if it wasn't for colonialism. But the quote-unquote right side of that political spectrum, in the boomer conservative, they don't frame it in that way, but they frame it as an individualist, well, you're entitled if you think that you don't deserve, that you deserve conditions where you don't have to compete with the labor base of the third world that will accept any condition of degradation compared to you.
And keep in mind, no one's arguing like a lefty or a left libertarian. Where I'm not. No one so far in this debate has been advocating for like abolish rent or rent is theft or something like that.
But you notice the two sides are basically geared against you: the leftoid anti-colonialism and the conservatard, you're entitled individualism, yuppieism. Yeah. But the thing is, people making these arguments are fucking boomers. They're not great generation people that actually suffered. They're the kids of the great generation people that suffered through world wars and famine and the Great Depression. They're the generation that directly benefited from the immense accumulation of wealth as Europe still continued to burn. And they had the baby boom. Like, so they're like the last fucking people to talk. But anyways, go ahead, Prue. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, also keep in mind, most of these debates are not happening with actual boomers. A lot of it is Gen X versus Zoomer.
Like Rufo.
Yeah. I mean, like Gen X and Cernovich are very much Gen X. And like, that's what you're dealing with in this argument, is those two generations, is the Zoomer versus the Gen X.
Right.
And Gen X is like sort of the last generation that had it pretty good. And that can be done through a lot of ways. Like, my father joined the military. He's Gen X, went in to learn how to fix radios, and now, I mean,
there's a lot of boomers that aren't like that as well. I shouldn't say
well, sure, but I mean, like, there's
boomers.
The Gen X, the Gen X aspect of this is, I think, the important focus, because even up into the election, that there was a lot of political attention and focus given specifically to Gen X, in part because you had activists and you had commentators like Musk, like Rufo, like Tucker, and the rest of them. Some of them, of course, have got ties to various people and things like that. Others, agency connections, cough, cough, Tucker Carlson. But like, I think it's sort of an important thing to consider in this entire discussion about that it's a generation that can remember mourning in America again, or grew up in mourning in America, versus a generation that has been more dispossessed than you and I were. And even then, there are plenty of people my age and younger where they can do it, and they are the exceptional. And I think that's another thing that kind of gets missed in this debate, is there are going to be people who just plainly just say no, or plainly just decide to willingly fuck up their life because they want to be a NEET, or they want to be a druggie, or they want to, just goon, right? Like, I get it. And I'm not an advocate for that kind of lifestyle.
Have accomplished great things, but I understand druggies and gooners. Yeah. I mean, Unfortunately,
Okay,
there's a
not
huge
every
crossover,
NEET is
but-
going to be a painter who contributes actively to like positive society.
No,
There's
but
just-
there's a lot of NEET
no
for
need to.
gooners,
I'm
yeah.
not calling you out. I'm not calling you out.
There's
no
a lot
need
of
to
NEETs
get
who are
defensive.
gooners. Yeah, that's true. It's true.
But like, there's a difference between the guy who is like studying Greek or making paintings or writing a book, and he's not employed at the current moment, compared to a guy who is just like
A drug
jerking
addict.
off to Rule 34 and smoking weed and drawing a government check. There is a big difference between those two guys. And I think that the guy that I mentioned on the former is far more inclined to want to have a system that would want him to be able to do good things versus the guy who just wants to like cum his life away.
No, but that's what the anime Youngin have been saying though in response, is that these boomers, these people, they don't like value the spirit of youth. And I think that they don't want to settle for less. And I understand that, you know, but the thing is, like, there's a difference between being
You also do
entitled-
have to like
we have to
and
be
again,
realistic too.
the realism is important because it's like, trust me, I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly. I also know that if I had, I don't like the fact that like I've got to work to have insurance and things like that, but also that, it's just, you have to deal with the circumstances you're in.
Yeah,
and that
I think
sucks
like,
ass. And I'm not saying that you should embrace it or settle for it. Like any person who willingly settles for like the life that they've decided to live, I mean, like that's a conscious decision that you make with your own agency. And is that like the best choice that you can make, that you decide to settle? No. But I mean, I think some people are realistic that that's like quote unquote the best they can get, but that's on them. But I think that most people look at the system that we're in, or look at the current political moment we're in, and recognize that actually we're not doing so great, or that, why should I settle for a system that tells me that this is all I can be, or that this is where I can start?
Yeah, like most people don't have that agency because like things are okay, so this is what I mean. Like I think like certain anime posters go way too far. That is true, and they do have like, I mean, I still kind of do have like the romanticized picture of the neat aristocrat of the soul. But at the same time, I think they're discounting people like these Gen Xers and Boomers are discounting the ways in which the system is kind of rigged against you. And that ways in which that wasn't rigged against Boomers or even Gen Xers, really. Like most of my cousins are Gen Xers, and they're all like professional people. And they have like, they have typical like atomic family, whatever. But it's like, then I know of other Gen Xers that did slip through the cracks. That is true. But I think that when it comes right down to it, like there are very unique selection pressures that millennials, Zoomers, and now Gen Alpha have to deal with. And to say that it's entitlement is like, again, the right side of the leftist argument. That because you're a Westerner, that you're not entitled to shit because don't you know that people are dying in the third world every single day and they're like starving or whatever.
Eat your vegetables because they're starving children in Africa.
Exactly. The vast majority of starvation in the world is caused by economic and supply chain mismanagement, not just the lack of materiality to actually feed people. It's for decades upon decades of food aid that has fundamentally distorted a lot of these local markets and economies. And there's a very complicated system as to why there's still people that have experienced famine in continents like Africa and certain parts of Asia. But the point being is that to say that while you're squandering away the civilization that your ancestors built as a justification and fucking over your own children and grandchildren while you do it is like not really an argument. It's like the Stefan Molyneux, not an argument.
Yeah,
like,
and also like, and again, about like those sort of barriers and things. It's just like, well, I had to walk uphill both ways when I went to school. It's like, cool. I went to college during Obama's Dear Letter campaign or Dear Colleague letter. Dating was a terrible idea for some people because they were afraid of basically getting kicked out of college because some girl decided to change her opinion about hooking up with them, which I mean, again, is an indictment of hookup culture. But that also most fraternities were closed. And then not to mention with Zoomers, for God's sake, you went to school during fucking COVID? That sucks.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, I get it. And every generation has its hardships. At that point, yes, Rufo is absolutely correct.
Yeah, we had 9/11 and the economic crisis.
9/11, global financial crisis, wars, everything that you can think of under the sun.
A lot of older millennials died when they didn't have to because they went to GWAT. And I'm talking about the ones that
or they got hooked on pills and died.
Yeah. Or they checked out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, you know.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah. Not just the casualties of the war itself. I mean, the greater casualties of GWAT in general. And destabilized the region to the point. Well, I mean, Europe, people debate on the E-Red about the migrant crisis and if America had that much to do with it. I mean, it certainly was a factor.
Oh, I think it's a pretty big factor.
Yeah,
you would not have the stability, the migrant crisis as we know it, if not for the Arab Spring policy of the United States.
Yeah.
I would argue that that's definitely a huge indictment of American foreign policy onto Europe. Plus, it strengthened the shit out of Turkey, which is terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But like back to this main issue. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating because I mean, again, people stopped listening as they do, and people decided to just say screw you. And that's what they wanted. They did not want to be heard. They did not want to. They just wanted to say screw you.
Or they made copes for their favorite daddy. That's another disgusting part of it. But I'm not going to call anybody out. But you know, it's like the guy. People are tweeting what they're tweeting. People are saying what they're saying. Just don't cope about it. Just admit it. You know, like. Why are you like part of some network? Where never mind, I'm not going to go there.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is that, and I had tweeted something the other day where people were like, "Well, that's glowy shit," and I'm like, you know, they don't do this, or that someone couldn't just tell an AI to do this, and I had said using textual analysis to map political subgroups on Twitter. And I was just thinking, like, wouldn't it be interesting?
People do that all the time.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you can notice this with like group chats and things like. Like the same sort of phraseology is being used amongst these like
remember the Travis Brown map?
Yeah,
happens all the time.
Happens all the time.
I mean, me and you were also landed on them. Well, I don't think.
Oh, were we?
I think I was buried under Owen Cyclops, if I recall.
I'll take it.
Anyways, whatever.
I'll take it.
The point being is that people can. There was even a guy that used to go around. I think he was a frog, but then he deactivated. That was like mapping out all the different factions of the E-Right. And then I think like people like chased him away because they're like, well, this is kind of like glowy stuff. But anybody can do it. Anyone with a sufficient knowledge of
there's a certain character who I haven't read any of his content or anything like that, but I you know, he tried to map like the right-wing Twitter sphere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he got it particularly accurately, but you know, I mean, like people still do this. I think he calls himself like a right-wing Leninist. But like again, you know, these things anyone can do it.
That's like so like 2017.
I know. When I saw it, I was like, huh, this is like
Leninist.
as an alternative to populism, and I was like, I've heard this story before. Interesting.
That's like 2016 Thermidor magazine shit right there. You know, right wing.
Yeah, it's like, how do you do, fellow old troons? You know.
Yeah. Anyways.
Many such cases.
So no, but the thing is, like, yeah, people are talking past each other. And one tweet I will say that I thought was pretty good, though, just in case people are misrepresenting what me and Prude are saying, is that this tweet comes from Patrick Casey. Oh, and by the way, I have this in my core report bookmarks. We didn't mention last week that that Jean-Marie Le Pen has died at 96 years old.
Yes, he died. Surrounded by friends, family, and a priest, and all these like socialists leftoids in the streets of France were celebrating. In a lot of ways, people compared him to Goldwater.
6 years old, you know, like
we did it. Racism is defeated. And I'm like, well, he lived a pretty long, healthy fucking life. I mean, say what you will, but like he did pretty well for himself.
One of the most effective right-wing operators in all of European history, you know, like you really owned him by
you got him. You got him all right.
You got him. So this is a great tweet by Patrick Casey. On the one hand, turning your nose up at people working jobs you perceive to be beneath you isn't right. On the other hand, there is nothing noble about downward mobility, especially if it's due to bad policies like DEI and mass immigration. I agree with that 100%. Like, I'm not saying, like, listen, I've been surrounded by working class people my whole life. I myself have also done a bit of construction here and there, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, my old man has done construction his whole life. I'm not turning my nose up at fucking working class people. That's not what I'm saying. But I think
my best friend's an electrician, and he and I both will come. We come home at different times from work. But like I hear his day out and then he listens to mine, and I always feel like shit talking about my job. I am a lowly, middling government bureaucrat talking. I'm a spreadsheet monkey, for Christ's sake. I have it incredibly fucking good. But then you listen to him and you listen to all the scary shit that he has to do at his day job, and you're like, I have an endless respect for what we would traditionally call working class. Absolutely, but also at the same time,
you can't compare
to tell a young guy out of college, or to tell a young guy, and again, like this is on top of every other like minuscule piece of discourse we've had, which is like, everything from go into the trades to get a degree, and I mean, no one is again. Years of speaking past each other, and there is not a coherent vision. There's not a coherent talking point about anything other than saying like, well, you might as well just suck it up. And I understand, like I'm used to that. I've heard that my entire fucking life. And I get it. Like you make do out of a shitty situation. You absolutely have to. But at the end of the day, we should not be looking at our current set of society or our current set of rules or current set of policies, whether it be about trade, whether it be about job creation, whether it be about prioritizing immigrant workforce over native born workers. We saw this with Elon over the H-1B debate, with Vivek over Christmas time. It's just all an extenuation of the same thing. And in the bare basic minimum, it's the question of why is it that we cannot realize that the citizenry of a country, that the basic understanding that we should be taking care of our own first is not a bad thing. That's really what this boils down to, is that it's bad. It's always been bad. And we can't allow that to happen because we're about equal opportunity. We're about meritocracy. That meritocracy can be artificially inflated by the quantitative easing of people through DEI, through H-1B, through endless immigration, through all sorts of things of affirmative action. And what does it all boil down to? Well, it boils down to that eternal chart. Who prefers the other over one's own?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, though...
Sorry for interrupting. What was Patrick saying?
No, that was the tweet, Prude.
Okay.
Don't fucking mention drama, guys. Come on. I'm very tempted to mention drama, but I won't.
What drama?
Oh, I mentioned Patrick Casey and
that drama.
Anyways, let's.
My one statement is that does it benefit anyone on this point, or is it just another flame war of positions?
No, it doesn't.
Again, my position. I'm going to step over it. I'm thankful to AA for allowing me to be on UO when I started out, and I think that he wrote a good couple of books, but he's doing his own thing, and I think a lot of European and American political commentators have gone their own separate ways, which I think is overall a long-term a beneficial thing for both sides. This pointless drama and shit like that is, I'm just going to ignore it. That's my only position. I'm stepping over it. I don't care.
I still like AA, but I don't like certain people he associates with. But anyways, no, I think it's all stupid drama. But the point I was trying to make is that when it comes down to it, there will always be a subsection of people that will go into the trades. But the point being is that, okay, if you're for mass remigration, but at the same time, okay, first of all, you can't compare someone working at fucking Chipotle to someone who pours concrete, a concrete finisher, or someone who's an electrician, or someone who is a roofer. Okay, those things are not equal. I hate to say, but what about they have to deal with customer? Okay, I understand. Listen.
Two totally different jobs.
My mother worked at Swiss Chalet as a prep cook for fucking 20 years, okay? I understand, okay? Working in a kitchen is not fun. Okay, I worked a little bit in the kitchen. But the point being is that I think if you had a different economic structure, if you had a different system, if housing was cheaper, if we had the same degree of benefits and dignity that the average fucking Carnegie steel mill worker or a Ford plant steel worker had in the 60s and 70s, the world would be a lot different in North America and in Europe and the West as a whole. And the thing is, if that construction worker could support a family on his wage, then you kind of will think about like, I know I'm destroying my body, but I know my retirement's going to suck physically. But if I can support a family on one income, the way that my grandfather did, supporting 5 children and a wife by being a manager at, well, granted, he was a foreman at one of the largest block plants in North America at one point. But the point being is that, my grandmother, she was a head nurse. She was what they call a NUM in the Commonwealth. They call it a NUM, nursing unit manager. Then she became a public health nurse. She went down to my town. She was born and raised in Toronto. But then she stopped working when she had kids. And so, my grandfather supported my old man's family that way. And, he had to suffer too. He had to drive to Hamilton every morning when they closed the plant in my local town. And he fucking hated it. And he hated, there's many bad things to doing the trades. It's not fucking peaches and cream, let me tell you. But the point being is that, you still could support a family of 5 when you're doing it. Can you support a family of 5? Unless you're doing some kind of like trad, crunchy granola, happy poverty thing, you're not going to be able to support 5
Or you
children.
work in tech or you're a lawyer.
Yeah. Yeah, but as a construction worker, like,
no
way. So,
and I mean, so there's a family I know that I don't want to say it's like the crunchy poverty thing. I mean, to some extent, it kind of is. But I mean, they have
the Varg Vickers pill, yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it's not even that. I mean, like they're a family I met, and I don't know if he's still a listener of the show. I think he is. But he and his wife both work, and they have a lot of kids. But also, like the wife works in a way to where she can homeschool the children. But they do not live in the world's greatest house. I don't think they will live in the world's greatest neighborhood. But yeah, they've got several children. I want to say 6 now. And, they try their best to make it work. Now, is that an idealism of like crunchy, quote unquote, white trash poverty? Some would say yes to that. I disagree. Yeah. But I mean, even then, I think that they live a better life than I do for all.
You could gussy it up with trad crunchy granola stuff. But
yeah, and I mean, like that's one way to do it. But I think most people would look down on that because they're not into that. A lot of it see it as a trend or as a fad or as some individuals, I think like Helen Roy, for example, it's been very much like, oh, well, this is just like commodifying X, Y, and Z, which to some extent is very much true. But also at the same time, isn't this like what you're trying to promote, which is just like family formation? And I'm kind of just like for that. I'm pro white family formation. Like not to be controversial here, folks, but here we are.
Yeah, like if if Arval wants to do his intentional community thing, I think all power to him,
Yeah, I know a lot of guys that are trying to do that with intentional communities. And if you can make it work, good luck, man. I'm rooting for you, and I pray that it is successful in the sense that it's a proof of concept that can be tested and that people look at and can try and emulate. Is it likely? I don't know.
You have to be realistic about these things.
You have to be realistic. Like it requires a lot of capital, a lot of hardship, and people with money already who want to get out. These things are very exit oriented, and sometimes that exit orientation either leads to great formation of family, business, and community where they're independently wealthy, or it leads to like colony collapse style. Oh, well, like this is a great waste of money and
like that Adam Curtis documentary when the hippie communes that were trying
to like you either end up like the Eucanites or you end up in an Adam Curtis documentary. Like it's either Theodore Judson or Adam Curtis, and either which way, those endings to either story are not necessarily great.
Yeah,
but one is way better than the other.
Yeah, but let's be real here. Like the reason I think that not the reason I think it's true is that I think the reason, of course, that, for example, Bennett Demelich is successful with Exit is because a lot of those people are Mormons, and he's a Mormon, and Mormons have an incredible track record of having this strong mutual aid network and in-group preference and
the way America used to work for all races and all religious groups and European backgrounds.
And they've developed that over hundreds of years because of being, the Mormons were kind of persecuted by the federal government at one point. So, in Arizona.
I have to hold my tongue on that issue.
I know you have a thing about that. I mean, they were, but like, I mean, if you, when the Mormons were being chased out of Arizona and Utah, but you know what I mean? The point being is that they have a stellar track record with mutual trust and with helping in land management and networking. Yeah, the Mormons, they got it down pat, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, like a lot of Mormon, like dentistry is a good example of that kind of like mutual aid-esque Mormonist network. We talk about the people like to joke about the Talmudic network on Twitter, but like wait till you hear about like
the Mormon network,
the Doctrines and Covenants network.
Mormons were always on their own. They were always stateless. Yeah, that's true. They kind of are like a stateless people. Like America's their state. Mormonism is kind of like the
except for like American the 3 states religion in which their church is the largest denomination.
Yeah.
I mean, Utah's entry into statehood was a quote-unquote soft ban on polyamory.
No, but the point being is that, it won't work out for everybody. I mean, I hope it does.
And that's the important thing to emphasize in this discussion is like, not everyone is getting saved. But it's a matter of, are you willing to put the effort in to try?
Yeah, I mean, there's obvious flaws with the whole Benedict option shit, but like...
Very.
Yeah.
Although I will say this, the one real nugget of truth, it's not the one real nugget, there's actually quite a few good nuggets in the Benedict option. I can't entirely shit on Rod Dreher, but I can for lots of reasons, but not for these.
Not for those reasons.
Rod was incredibly correct when he had written in the Benedict option that if you are like an actual like believer and you take it seriously and you are like more than just a Sunday or more than a Christmas and Easter guy, you are already a minority in the West and you are already a minority in the United States in most places. That's true. That has not changed.
Yeah.
That's a real nugget there. Also that like you will have to accept a pretty low quality of standard or a downgrade for a good chunk of it until you make it work if you decide to leave and exit. And again, like a lot of these things are things that have been written about fictionally by writers like Theodore Judson and other friends of ours. But it's a question of will, and it's a question of like trying to be quote unquote a frontiersman in an age where intentionalism like that is illegal.
Yeah, but there's this great tweet again. I'm looking at my core report tab. There's a great tweet by your good friend Reverend Poster, who I have a history with, but I've been sworn to secret, so I'm not going to reveal anything. But Reverend Poster has a great tweet where he says, everything you've heard from older conservatives about how Gen Z is, quote, lazy and entitled, etc., was already said before about millennials 10 years ago. When millennials were in our 20s, the 2008 financial crisis had recently happened, the job market was awful, and most of us couldn't get our adult lives off the ground. Many of us already have high student debt because boomers told us we all needed to go to college to get good jobs. Then when 2008 happened and it became clear that we'd been rug pulled, boomers told us we were just eating too much avocado toast and going to Starbucks too much. Well, some of them were, let's face it, but he's got a point.
I was like, there's still a huge spending problem. That Caleb guy on YouTube is a good example.
You remember the 2 Disney adult lesbian couples? You know that one?
Yep. I watched this guy's channel in part because I think he offers some good financial advice, but also like it's a great, if you want a red pill on decline, there you go.
Then remember the Asian one's like, but I wanted to make her happy. He's like, you endorsed it. It's kind of like when Gordon Ramsay's like, you endorsed it. You sat in it. It was yours. That was great. I believe it was the that one really like the it was another lesbian woman, ironically enough, the City restaurant, remember?
Yeah,
she had like the meatloaf. Yeah. Those lamb bones, those rotten lamb bones. Anyways, now Zoomers have it even worse than we did. Normal people were finally getting their feet back under them in those years following 2008. Some millennials clawed their way back on track by the late 2010s. Then Clownvid panic happened, and boomers did a controlled demolition of the economy again. Millennials got rug pulled a second time, and Zoomers got rug pulled even harder, given that their starting point was even worse off for millennials were. Every single problem millennials faced had become even worse for Zoomers. The people calling you lazy and entitled are the same people who told you, quote, just work hard and it'll pay off, bucko, while letting the country go to hell. It was gaslighting then, and it's gaslighting now. Boomers are just living under the delusion that they, quote unquote, earned the inevitable luck of being born into the best economic situation in the history of the world. And possessing the intelligence that you do, you're able to understand this. By definition, isn't an option for the Western majority of people. He's replying to someone that says, my own saving grace as a Zoomer in the situation is being fortunate enough to pick a super niche field with a legitimate global skilled labor shortage. Yeah, but not everybody has that. Not everybody that goes to coding school, that gets a computer science degree is going to have that qualification. You know,
Correct.
I mean, fuck, even in our industry, you know what I mean? Like, this is pretty saturated, you know? Like, I mean, by the way...
Oh, you're referring to being online. Okay.
Content producer. By the way, I didn't get enough views. Content Minded episode 75 about the art and art writings of Ray Pete is out now. You guys got to boost those.
Incredibly well done. That well done, and that nice niche kind of subtle put it in there. Well done.
Yeah,
well
I kind of should have introduced the topic a bit better, but you know.
No, I'm just laughing at how you just sold yourself.
No, but the point being is that, yeah, everything Reverend Poster said is 100% true. And I know boomers use the excuse of Vietnam, but actually, if you look statistically, the generation that went to Vietnam was the silent or the forgotten generation in between the great generation and the boomers. All those musicians that constituted the 60s and 70s rock bands, they were the forgotten generation. Older boomers to forgotten generation were the ones that constituted who went to Vietnam from 69 onwards, or rather from 67 onwards. When did the Vietnam War start? 60?
That's a complicated question.
Well, because
when
if
did
you
we
factor
send
in the
advisors?
French,
when did we send aid? When did we try and deal things with
you sent
Indochina?
advisors in 59, I believe.
Oh, dude, we've been involved since...
Well, you've been involved since the early
Eisenhower.
50s. Yeah, so yeah.
Technically 55 to 75, but really picks up really more in the early 60s.
The early 60s when they had the huge troop surge, and then Lyndon Johnson had the really massive troop surge before Khe Sanh in the Tet Offensive around, I believe, 69, 70. So, yeah, but I mean, America's been there since the French were in there. Like, let's face it, since like Eisenhower, yeah. FDR gave Ho Chi Minh aid to fight. Yeah, exactly. It's all covered in the extended version of Apocalypse Now. John Millis did a great job on that. And the Chinese, then the Vietnamese, right after we left, they fucking fought the Chinese. That's great.
They fought them in 79.
When was the Gulf of Tonkin? 61?
Gulf of Tonkin is... It's a great question. I want to say... I'm just going to look it up real quick.
Yeah, it really heated up from 65
64.
64, yeah.
So when LBJ is president.
Wasn't, I believe, did they reach a number of 500,000 troops at one point in America?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, Gio. I don't know.
We need Mike Paul to come because he knows a lot about military history. We need Mike Paul.
Well, if we're going to do an episode on Vietnam, I just need to spend a day doing research.
Yeah. Me and Mike Paul, remember when we were talking about the first generation of M16s and how they would like jam up and like they couldn't get the fire rate down because of the ammunition they were using, and it was a great Spurgery. It was a great Spurg episode.
We love Spurg.
Yeah,
we're pro Spurg. I
believe by 65, 66 they got the fire rate down pat with the ammunition they were using. So the M16 became, people, I'm not a gun guy, right? I'm not a gun guy, but like...
Oh, we know.
No, but like they say like, oh, the fucking AK-47. A lot of tests nowadays with the modern equivalents, AR variants, in fact, are in some cases more reliable than the the AK-47. But I would say the ones the Russians are using, the newer variants of the basic AK model, is quite more reliable than the ones they were producing in the 50s and 60s. But I think the Ukrainians, they use like a mix of the AKs and like whatever America gives them. So the Ukrainians have a huge hodgepodge of weapons that
Well, they
using.
have a shitload of Soviet surplus, so who's really surprised by that?
Yeah, true. Well, they've actually burned through a lot of the Soviet surplus by now, but
I'm sure that's true.
Yeah, that's a different argument for another stream. I believe they still do it. But in terms of small armaments, yeah, they have shit ton of Soviet armaments. I mean, yeah, that's true. You know, like there was rifles that were in World War One that they're finding are still being used in Africa. There are German rifles from World War One that African militiamen are still using to this day. Incredible. Like that's incredible. I believe Mark Felton on YouTube did a video on it. I know he's like a normie World War II historian. Obviously, like he's kind of blue pilled on things, but like in terms of like historical factoids, he is pretty good. I think Thomas doesn't like him though. I think Thomas likes Mark Felton. But anyways, that's pretty crazy. That's German engineering, you know. Like Indian police still use the Enfields. Holy shit! That's crazy. What were you gonna say, Prude?
Oh, I was just gonna say, you're like, that's a marvel of like German engineering, and I'm like, that's a marvel of the lack of African development. Lord, how long? I mean, really,
didn't they say in the 80s you could buy Geweers like really cheaply? Like you could buy a lot of those like World War I, World War II rifles.
I'm sure you could in the 80s. I'm sure, or even right when the wall fell. I'm sure there was a lot of good shit you could get.
Oh, but, fuck yeah.
Alas, the time has passed, and here we are.
Yeah, the gun collectors are getting real. Is that true? Prude, in America, gun collectors are getting squeezed. Like it's just shit's all expensive now.
Things really took a huge price jump in terms of ammunition and some firearms during COVID. Some of that's gone down. Some of it hasn't.
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, I bought a Glock a few months ago, but I mean that wasn't terribly expensive for me. But I'm sure that I'll get back to you if I want to go buy something that's. If there's any gun rare.
Collectors in the comment section that know about this stuff, you know. If you want to lay down some, I've heard that during the Obama years, a lot of guns did a substantial climb in pricing. So,
well, every time that they talk about gun control or anything like that, we just see a massive jump in gun sales. Like, I mean, it was a funny GOP talking point for years. It's like Barack Obama, gun salesman of the year, you know, which was true.
It's very true. Remember when Prigozhin captured that salt mine from the Ukrainians and it was full of brand new Thompsons and Maxim guns from World War II? Yeah, that was funny. It was full of wine as well. They were storing like very high priced like wine stocks there too. And I remember Prigozhin was like handing it out to the men, a bottle each, you know. R.I.P. to a legend, you know, R.I.P. to a legend. Allegedly. But, you know, Prigozhin lives in our hearts, I feel, you know. That man will never die, truly.
Per ABC, a federal court rules that DACA is illegal.
Oh, man.
Man, what a great win on immigration. What a great win.
That would be a clip right there. Prigozhin lives in our hearts. That's great. Anyways, yeah, so the DACA thing is the Dreamers, right?
Yeah. Deferred action something.
And for those who don't know, what was the Dreamer program for Obama? It was like kids coming over or some shit.
So no, DACA was a program that was specifically for deferred action for childhood arrivals. It was basically the president of the United States arguing that he had the right of prosecutorial discretion, and to which he had started in 2012, that allowed some individuals who were present in the United States with no lawful immigration status, having entered the country as children at least 5 years prior, to receive a renewable 2-year deferred action from deportation and be eligible for a work permit. An oral argument was heard on the court earlier this year, the state of Texas versus the United States versus the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. And according to the New York Times, the appeals court, according to the NYT, says that it is unlawful. So there you go.
It seems unlawful, like I like the way it was sort of subterfuged in there. Like it's
yeah. So one Reagan, one George W. Bush, and one Democrat judge. All three, by the way, it was a unanimous decision on the panel.
Oh, there you go.
Had argued that it was illegal, and that I'm yawning. Pardon me. It signals no immediate change for its more than 500,000 beneficiaries. The decision made to have a third visit to the Supreme Court. DACA introduced in 2012. This case involved a rule issued by Joe Biden in 2022. Little substantive change, but it was subject to public comment. Intended to improve its rulemaking process in order to improve its chances of surviving legal muster. U.S. District Judge Andrew Hannon in Houston said the executive branch had overstepped its authority, and he barred the government from approving new applications. He left it intact for current beneficiaries while appeals played out in court. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General in Texas, had said that it is a major victory. He had said, "I look forward to working with President-elect Donald Trump to ensure that the rule of law is restored and that the illegal immigration crisis is finally stopped." And DHS has not had a comment.
Yeah.
But however, the last time it was, excuse me.
Who are the majority here? Scalia or
no? Well, this is a federal appeals court.
Oh, it's federal appeals.
This is the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. So traditionally, it's viewed as a conservative court. In 2016, when there was a vacancy on the Supreme Court when Antonin Scalia died, the justices were deadlocked 4-4 over an expanded version of DACA and a version of the program for parents of DACA recipients, keeping in place a lower court decision for the benefits to be blocked. In 2020, the High Court ruled 5-4 that the Trump administration improperly ended DACA, failing to follow federal procedures allowing it to stay in place. And who was that fifth person to vote for it? I'm very curious. Who was it? I have a gut feeling I know exactly who it was, but let's find out real quick.
Kagan?
No. I'm thinking about 5-4, in which John Roberts.
Oh, there you go. Fucking John Roberts.
John Roberts. Anyways, it's a
Bill Wilson, the Middle East conflict escalation and the 2014 Russian invasion dreaded most ex-Soviet exports. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
That's also true.
Yeah. Just the way, but anyways, the way they sold it, like DACA, like the Dreamers, it's so fucking stupid. Like,
sorry that you were forced to break the law.
Yeah.
But
that is, I mean, I know, like, I understand, like, if kids being brought over by their parents is like, but still, like, what are you gonna do? Yeah, it's a tough world. DACA's treason and should be punished by such. Yeah, that's true.
I would agree.
Yep. Anyways, is there any more news items going on?
Rest in peace, David Lynch.
Oh yeah, David Lynch. Yeah, I was sad. I mean, he was only 78, which is not very long in Hollywood years.
But I mean, I'm not surprised.
He had health problems. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it came to an end, unfortunately. It came to an end. But I will say his movies are great. If you haven't seen Twin Peaks, shame on you. You should. But yeah, I mean, I'm not big on celebrity deaths, but that one did suck ass to see.
Yeah.
I literally had a friend text me saying David Lynch died. And I hate to do the whole, like, where were you when he was, like, kill? It's like, I hate to do the green text moment there. But I was like, no, it really sucked. I was at work, and I was like, man, that really sucks. Yeah. That's really unfortunate. Do you have a favorite movie of his, Gio?
Oh, it's hard to say. It's a toss-up between Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive.
Yeah.
Probably Mulholland Drive. Probably Mulholland Drive is my favorite. I haven't watched Eraser. I should watch Eraserhead.
You're in for a weird time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've seen Eraserhead. I've seen Blue Velvet. I really like Lost Highway.
Lost Highway's great. Yeah.
I really like
Highway's
Lost
great.
Highway.
The soundtrack is really great in Lost Highway.
So true.
Yeah.
I very much do the my roommate doesn't know where I got it from, but I literally do the thumbs up Agent Dale Cooper thumbs up to people. I do, and no one knows what I'm referencing, but I like it. So Godspeed, David Lynch. May God have mercy on your soul.
You know, he was a painter too. He was an abstract painter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of those get posted in the last couple of days.
Yeah, they're great. Yeah. I really like his style. It reminds me of de Kooning. But yeah, I mean, Mulholland Drive, I mean, people were debating over it. I know BAP has a particular take, but that I saw that he was shredding David Ebert. Not John David Ebert. I thought John David, no, it was he was.
You mean the film reviewer Ebert?
Yes, yeah. Roger Ebert. Sorry, Roger.
Yes,
Ebert,
Roger Ebert.
Lost Highways, Trent Reznor, 2000s, Chud Corkino. Exactly. But no, about how nothing in Mulholland Drive is really a metaphor or a dream. That, I mean, if you wanted to take that Mulholland Drive as sort of like a metaphor for Hollywood in general, I could see where you could get the interpretation of a dream, but a lot of it is sort of like more of a surrealism that deals with the unconscious in a way that isn't exactly quote unquote the dream, right?
Yeah.
It's more like it's more surface, it's more sensuous than that, than just like explaining it away as sort of like a purely unconscious film. But yeah, there are parts in Mulholland Drive that are kind of confusing and you know, have like a lot of juxtaposing images, and there's a lot of different things you have to account for. But no, it's great. Yeah. We should do, I don't know if we should like do a
I would like to do a film review stream. That'd be fun.
Didn't you do a Twin Peaks review or no?
No, I need to. I need to do a Twin Peaks review.
Did Morgoth do one? I forget.
No, I don't know who's done one on our side of things. I think we've talked about it. I actually need to get Last Things on because he and I both love Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
He and I need to make that happen. And of course, people need to go participate in the Last Picture Show for 2024. That was a fun time. Now that it's out and everyone can go buy their tickets and go enjoy it and show it off. It's a fun time. It was a good time. What did you cover again?
Itchy the Killer.
Itchy the Killer.
Yeah, it was great. We talked about Bataille. David Lynch was also, Caravaggio says, David Lynch was also a photographer too, abandoned factories, industrial wasteland. That tells me he was definitely our guy. Yeah, I saw, like, I loved a lot of his photography as well. Like, he truly was a Renaissance man in every sense of the word.
Truly.
I just didn't like the Dune, because, you know, I wish Jodorowsky would have done Dune, but, you know, beggars can't be choosers.
That's true. Beggars can't be choosers.
Blue Velvet was amazing. I mean, Blue Velvet was incredible.
Only a man like David Lynch could make Laura Dern sexy.
Yeah. Laura Dern's all right. She's all right.
She's okay.
What other movie? Let me see. His David Lynch cinematography. I know I'm forgetting a film.
Well, you're forgetting Fire Walk with Me, but that's also related to Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah, The Amputee.
I have not seen that.
I haven't seen Inland Empire. I should see.
2006. I think it's his last movie he did.
Yeah.
I have it on DVD. I have not seen it though.
Yeah.
I have a huge DVD and CD collection, and I feel like that's nice to own.
I'm sure it's all in the Criterion collection now.
I wonder if that is. Now we're gonna go look that up. Unless chat can tell me first. Criterion collection, Inland Empire. Oh, it is. Look at that. It is.
No, but he
director approved 2 Blu-ray special edition features. So let's look at that. Look at that. It's on there. How much? Add to cart. $31. Well, I might as well just eat shit right there. Good Lord.
No, but he truly was a great artist as well. Like, I mean, like he did have like a very abstract and expressionistic style, very, very similar to Max Ernst in certain ways. If I had to compare it to another prolific expressionist, probably Max Ernst. You know, Gio. What about Laura? Don't mention Laura Loomer.
You just got loomered. It's over. Gio just got loomered.
Oh my god, I got loomered. Yeah, woes to mention Annie's girls in sweaters and use examples of Twin Peaks babes in sweaters. Shirley Fenn, Laura Flynn Boyle, etc.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man.
Back when things were good.
Oh, Gibson given she posted this little documentary thing he did on transcendental meditation. Like he was a big proponent of TM. So yeah, it was pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I think that will probably do it for this week's episode.
Is there anything more going on in the news or?
Well, Trump's about to be inaugurated. They moved it indoors due to weather concerns, and several ex-presidents will not be attending. Tells you how.
Of course.
Of course. How partisan this is going to be and how everyone is enjoying their takes on security, which I think is totally justified. I did enjoy their latest, the official inaugural portraits that are going to be up on all the government buildings. I like that J.D. Vance is the blue eyes, we're going to effing kill you meme, and that Donald Trump just has his mugshot photos recreated.
Yeah,
they look good. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I voted for Trump, but like I'm not a big like MAGA rah guy. But like it is incredibly difficult to not just want to like shut out and look at that and just be like, we're gonna fucking kill you. Like there's like if you don't have a tiny
J Vance one,
I mean even for both of them, even if you can't look at it, just be like, if you can't have that little bit of Schadenfreude and like knowing that libs are mad, it's unfortunate for you. I mean I like Trump. I will criticize him to the end of the moon because I would like making America great again to be way more than what Trump wants to do. I have my own ideas, and I hope that one day they be accomplished. But no, they're good pictures. But most of my friends who work in other parts of government have told me, and a lot of investors have sort of said that we may or may not do. We really won't know how things are going to go until Q1 2026.
Yeah.
So much seems to be going out of the way to make this this first year, these first 6 months, to be with so many booby traps being laid behind. Whether it be about what's going on in Gaza, although I know the Israelis are not happy with Trump about forcing a ceasefire agreement, and then all this immigration stuff. I mean, it's going to be a very tumultuous couple of months, to say the least.
Oh, yeah. Do you think the libs are going to freak out? Like they're going to have their own version of J6 or no?
I feel like they would have already had that opportunity on J6.
Yeah.
But, you know, at the same time, like, I think that they'll do things in different ways. Like when they do it, I think that if they do anything, it'll be done with just like we saw with the 2020 riots. It'll just be done with the tacit endorsement and subsidization of the state.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, what about you? I mean, do you see some kind of political violence or whatever coming on in the foreground?
Maybe not at mass level, but certainly there will be libs freaking out. Yeah, there will be people that are inherently crazy to begin with, that I think maybe they will like snap. And I mean, I predict like some people will sunset, obviously. Will I predict like another Bushnell thing? Maybe. There'll
be a couple of those, I think.
Yeah. Biden trying to ban cigarettes in America. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh yeah, really? He wanted to reduce the amount of nicotine in cigarettes.
Why?
To reduce smoking.
You can buy a zine that has 8 milligrams of nicotine now. Like blows your head off with nicotine. You know, like incredible. What do you think of A's take on the administration? What is A's take on the new Trump?
I don't know what his take is, other than
it's kayfabe. They let him win, sort of deal.
Well, I mean, that was his prediction very early on. So, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, if you could like enumerate A's take, like, I mean, tweet jacket enthusiast, if you can, like, I mean, yeah, I mean, A is not totally wrong, obviously. Like, I think like there's always room of suspicion.
I mean, it's suspicious to me that for a guy they've been calling Hitler for like 10 years is magically they're going to just let him in.
Yeah,
I'm skeptic. I'm skeptic.
Yeah.
I'm skeptic.
You can't be like skeptical. Totally drunk on hopium, but at the same time, you have to also, be skeptical of certain things. So,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Yeah, fuck.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really going to just be, we're going to watch a lot of tech rebrand, and it's going to, I think really the bigger issues are going to come over from the, it'll be from the tech side. That'll be the big subverter pull down of this administration. Because, I mean, everyone and their mother has seemingly had their quote-unquote, like, dude bro rebrand, from Zuckerberg to Musk to even fucking Bill Gates, of all people. He had said that he had a 3-hour talk with Trump, and he was really excited.
That's another thing. People in Facebook are, like, freaking out that they can be transphobic now. Like, it's...
I have to laugh because I think it was a Financial Times article where it was like a bunch of bankers are like, yeah, man, it's a new dawn. We can say pussy and retarded without getting in trouble. And it's just like, yeah, when I think about the vibe shift, I think about bankers. Like,
apparently Shirley Sandberg denounced Zuckerberg now.
Sheryl Sandberg? You leaned in too hard, bitch. It's over for you. Get out of here. Go back to...
Yeah.
Anyways.
So Tweet Jacket Enthusiast says maybe the key was popular vote, and now they truly see that they're the minority this time. Essentially, A's take was because of October 7th, they let him win. This time there's been little to no resistance. But at the same time, Trump is dicking over Netanyahu. Like the Israeli foreign minister said that it was like they're being raped, which, I mean, they're obsessed with it, the Israeli military and government. No, but I mean, if it's true, if it's a binding agreement that Trump is forcing Netanyahu's hand, then I think that's ultimately a positive thing. And I think that people that talk about, like, well, everything's an Israeli psyop, like, at a certain point, you do have to kind of curb your pessimism. And at the same time, though, I will admit, people that are skeptical of Trump, it is kind of true that, like, well, the Israelis have almost, like, really accomplished what they wanted to accomplish. I mean, they did murder like 200,000 people, or approximately 200,000. And, like, they kind of, like, destroyed, they irreparably destroyed Gaza forever. They really fucked over the political class in Lebanon. They really accomplished what they wanted to accomplish in Syria. So it's like Trump coming in there and being like, well, it's kind of, just stop. Of course, the Israelis are going to bluster and they'll be like, I can't believe this. Is like, we're being raped. It's like, what did you want? Like, you want to kill more? I mean, yeah, I know they want to kill more, but, like, they've accomplished a number of W's in the Middle East. It's only prudent if Trump goes in there to say, like, listen, stop it. It's over. What more do you want? You got rid of fucking Assad. You basically destroyed Hamas. You basically totally, cucked Hezbollah. It's like, like, I don't know. It's just, what more would they want to accomplish? A war with Iran. That's what they want, of course. But whether or not that's going to happen, the thing I'm really skeptical about, the thing I really fear if it would be a war with Iran, because that would also piss off the Chinese as well. And it would start a global trade war. It would temporarily hinder the Chinese and the Russians. But, I mean, the amount of resources to pull America into a war with Iran, the amount of lives that would take, American soldiers, would be incredible. So, hopefully nothing happens. I mean, I don't buy... I don't necessarily buy into the more paranoid skepticism of Trump that he wants a war with Iran or whatever. I think a war, that's kind of going way too far. But in terms of the Israelis, I mean, the Israelis have accomplished a lot. And it would only be better if Trump goes in there to be like, listen, it's over. Stop it, you know, after they've slaughtered them. So, you know, they still only have 6. What do you mean, Bill Watts? Oh, yeah, you know, but I saw another company had an 8 milligram pouch. I don't think it may have been what's another company called Rogue or something like that. It seems like Iran's treating Israel like an adult watching a child having a tantrum. Yeah, but I mean, if they were to have regime changed Iran, it would cause a lot of serious problems for the Chinese and the other BRIC nations. So I think, of course, India and especially Russia do not have leverage over the U.S. government, but China does have enough economic power to have leverage over the U.S. government. So I think that would in itself be a detriment to the thesis that Trump wants to go into war with Iran. Yeah, that and his legacy too. I don't think Trump wants to be known as a war president either.
No, he's really tried to not be. And I think he had made it clear, or at least some spokesman has made it clear with respects to American policy towards this conflict, is that American interests do not align with Israeli interests, and they're going to put American interest first. And I mean, if the reports are true, or like his guy that he had sent to see Netanyahu about this deal was just like, I don't give a shit about Shabbat despite being Jewish, like that. I don't know. I think he's not fucking around, because he really does not want to get dragged into this conflict. And America's not in a position to really get dragged into it further. No. Like, I mean, if the Houthis have been able to fuck up global shipping for the last year and a half, like, I don't know, maybe America needs to retrench itself a little bit before it can start doing real power projection again. And we need a serious retrenchment. And again, I mentioned this on Patrick Casey's show. I think the fact that like Elbridge Colby is going to be like the undersecretary for like policy writing for defense is a good thing, and it should be optimistic, because he's like one of the last actual fucking realists in terms of international relations schools left in this country who's got a position of influence and power. So there's hope for work to be done. But my bar is set super low. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if the bar improves somehow or some way, I'll take it.
But the thing is, like, Iran has their own systematic problems with their demographic situation, with a lot of, like, you know, libtards that live in Tehran, and really the Revolutionary Guard isn't what they used to be, obviously. So, I mean, who knows? There might be like a more Western sympathetic regime in Iran. But that being said, like I said this on the War Report when I was there to do the end of year show, like, it's not that, like, even if you get like a Western sympathetic government in Tehran, they're still going to do deals with the Chinese and the Indians and the Russians. It's not like, you know, it's not like fucking Mohammad Mossadegh or the Shah's in there, and it's like they're a total American puppet. Like, geopolitics doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, it would mean that these other nations in the Gulf would be scared, and they would probably go back to the Israelis and the Americans, which is something that Washington obviously wants. But, you know, so, I mean, I'm not a total third worldist, but I just think that, I mean, going to war with Iran would be a total disaster.
Agreed.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I mean, who knows what's the thing is, unfortunately, I don't know what Israel is going to do next. If they do sign this agreement, I mean, who knows if Likud's days are numbered in terms of a political force, because, I mean, strategically, they were pretty weak. Politically, they were pretty weak before October 7th. October 7th was, unfortunately, like one of the best things to ever happen to Likud, because, you know, Bibi was going to go to jail with his wife.
Well, I do think that there's going to be
a political shakeup in Israel, you think?
Oh yeah, there'll be another election.
Yeah.
There'll be an election.
The libs probably will win this time. The Tel Aviv liberals. Yeah, they probably. I'm not that well acquainted with Israeli politics, but I can see that Likud outside of the war is, you know, kind of unpopular for other reasons. And Bibi has been there for so long that he's accumulated a lot of bad blood when it comes to the political class in Israel. So apart from like hardcore, like diehard Zionists, like, I mean, yeah, BB does not have a lot of support. And if Trump wants to shiv him in the back, I mean, you know, I think that's a good thing, in my opinion. I think if Trump says, you know what, BB, you're on your fucking own, you know, because you shiv me in the back. So I think that's a good thing. That would genuinely, I think that would be a good move for Trump, to distance himself from Netanyahu. That's a great move. Not to say that Trump's going to cut foreign aid to Israel or something like that, but like, that's not going to happen. But if Trump could distance himself from the Likudniks, that would be a good move. It's just not politically advantageous, because there's a bunch of other problems in the Middle East now that Assad is gone that he's going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you know, Likud were to get out of there, if the more like tolerant liberal factions in Israel were to prevail, then maybe Trump could sign like another Abraham Accord. Who knows? Right?
Well,
like,
I think that's what he wants,
yeah,
but only time will tell.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know.
Well, Gio,
well,
may we go to our lovely supporters, viewers, listeners, and great fans of the show.
Yeah. And like you said, only time will tell, man.
Only time will tell.
Yeah.
And we will be here to report it every week until somehow we either get sick of each other, Gio decides to eat me, or I decide to tragically just pound sand and run into a train. Until then,
you have 3 kidneys, so you know that's kind of incentivizing me. Right
it is incentivizing. I know he is the biggest friend, so why doesn't he simply eat all the other friends? And we will find out soon. But no, this week's This week's episode of the Digital Archipelago is brought to you by the brand new hit book, brought to you by author of Automaton T.R. Hudson, The Perfect and the Wicked. If you are looking for a insightful and thrilling, as well as a spiritually enthralling story of historical fiction, basing ourselves in a world of the Kennedys in the 1960s, then you will find yourself absolutely enraptured in the prose and dialogue of The Perfect and the Wicked, available now in all regional bookstores, as well as on Amazon.com, brought to you by our friend T.R. Hudson, author of The Perfect and the Wicked and Automaton, as well as one of the owners of the Double Dealer magazine. And now on to the Super Chats. So support friends, buy friends, and we'll go from there. I will start with the YouTube ones.
Need those Super Chats,
and so I can go through that now. And yeah, we'll start with YouTube, and then we'll conclude with Entropy. I always prefer the Entropy link just because it is the pinned comment there, and it takes a smaller cut than YouTube does. YouTube takes 30%, Entropy takes 15%. Bolero says, poor Cuckada. So far from God, so near to the United States.
That's so great.
That's a good line. That's a great line. Whenever you do like a State of Canada stream, Gio, you need to call that "So Far from God." So
maybe next Core Report, or maybe we'll have Fortnex or Black Horse on. We'll have "So Far from God, So Near to the U.S."
He says Shine Bomb, is that an Aztec name? No, it is not, but you can look that up for yourself.
Well, actually, according to some racial scientists on the E-right, never mind.
Anyways, Hugo Gloss for 50 Mexican pesos. Speaking of Mexicans, thank you, Hugo.
It follows up with a Mexican peso.
Instagram Reels is filled with George Droid selling Ninja Link shitcoins. You know which ones I'm talking about. Peter Griffin reading the Quran and whores.
Woo, man! I gotta go back to Instagram, man. Please, my Instagram is Giant Productions. My Telegram, I want you all my spicier
rants. The links are
rants
in the description.
My spicier rants are on telegram.com/Giant Productions. Instagram, I will start posting more art on there. I will start posting my YouTube shorts on there. So, we'll have a good time.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Thank you, Hugo Gloss, for 50 Mexican pesos.
He says again, Bismarck Analysis made a great brief on the relation between the Mexican government and the cartels. The former has much more power and is a case of anarcho-tyranny.
Yeah.
I'll have to give that one a read or a watch.
That's 50 less Mexican pesos that Ethan Oliver Ralph will have. So, there you go. He ain't doing too good. Did you know he shivved a Dick Master simp in the back recently?
No.
That's pretty good. Well, Den of Thieves, all that stuff. Peter Levito. I mean, sorry,
no,
Vito Levito. You know?
no honor among thieves, as the story goes. Oh, ham, the ham of my life, the ham of the eggs over my hammy. What am I going to do with this stupid super chat? Well, ham, it's very generous, but the fact that I have to read something from Mike Cernovich's blog post from like 11 years ago hurts my soul. But for the incredibly generous, albeit backhanded, $50.
$50.
I'm not going to put it on screen, but I will read it for you. Then I vaguely remembered what I was doing, and it had this weird chemical salty taste. Mike Cernovich, 2014. And I'll let you all look that one up, because that's a real article that you can
He
find.
said it was a joke, though. He said it was, in all fairness, he said it was a joke.
I'm sure he did. Nevertheless, it's going to be used against him like a baseball bat at a t-ball game for the rest of his life, which is unfortunate. But hey, again, kind of glad that you and I grew up in a time where we weren't writing about all the dumb shit we did, joke or not.
Oh man, yeah.
Yes, it's Lee Jackson Day.
Oh my god.
It is Lee Jackson Day, everybody. Robert E. Lee's birthday is on 1/19, and Stonewall Jackson's is on 1/21. And will Trump rededicate the 1/20 federal holiday and commission some new statues? I know that Trump has said, or Trump spokesmen have said, that he's wanting to bring back the Confederate general names to U.S. Army bases, which I'm all for. But only a few places in the South celebrate Lee Jackson Day. Texas does not, unfortunately, at least that I'm not aware of. But, you know, Lee Jackson Day is an important tradition for Southerners.
$50 for Medicare masochist. Oh
no. Robert E. Lee. Oh, sorry, I was just reading that. Robert Weisenfeld for $4.99. He says, when the Obamas separate, who do they start dating after? When do they start dating after? I'm thinking Michelle, Dustin Moskovitz, or Barack with Orlando Bloom. Wow, Orlando. That's a name I haven't heard of.
Whatever happened to him? He doesn't go into much movies now.
He doesn't do a lot of. Yeah, that's a good point.
Whatever. What was the last thing he was in?
That's a great question. Hold on, let's go look that up real quick. Orlando Bloom.
He was like everywhere in the 2000s.
He sure was. What was the last thing he was in?
He was like
apparently the 2023 movie Gran Turismo. He was in The Outpost. What else was he in more recently? Red Right Hand. That I guess that's a Netflix or a Hulu film. That came out. So I guess he's in that, and he's also in The Cut. So those are two movies that came out just the last year. I guess, wow, he got a different look on him.
Really,
they fixed his hairline.
Oh, wow.
I'm really impressed by what they can do. Truly. I mean, that's really impressive stuff. Whatever they do in Hollywood to fix that, that's really cool.
That'd be great, Bill Wilson, if I could do a deal with Tucker Carlson's zine pouch. Every flavor will have Gio's painting.
So I'm not gonna lie, I did send our show and our respective emails, because apparently like the Alp pouches, they were looking for people to be like where they could sponsor their show and product. I did put us on. Never heard back from them, but I wasn't gonna say no to the opportunity. I'm not below hawking and shilling nicotine. Bolero 393 says, amazing that entering the Vietnam War was the third worst policy decision of the LBJ administration. Also signed the Hart-Celler and Civil Rights Act. Well, keep in mind, Vietnam and our policy towards that had only been escalating for the previous two administrations. It was, but yes, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, all the shady shit that went behind that. Yeah. ML Wiz asked me, how do I feel about my Trump vote now? Better than dealing with Kamala Harris. And if I'm going to borrow a certain definition of victory, if a victory allows me more time to make more room to build more victories, then I'm going to have a much better chance building and operating than I am now. And as I said in my post-election Substack, literally like the morning after the election, at the very least, Trump being in office buys young white guys 4 more years of breathing room to organize, to get money, and to do what they need to do to improve as shit gets worse after his political era comes to an end. So those are really all my thoughts on with regards to that. But moving over to the lovely Entropy link. Thank you very much. As I lose myself. A gentleman named John Doe says, "Hi Gio, I sent you an email in the middle of September. See how you don't reply your emails or your messages?
Well,
Gio, you need a secretary." Anyways, he says, I sent you an email back in the middle of September about a small business proposition. I don't know if you missed it or if it went into your spam folder, but if it was the latter, I will resend it in case it has been deleted.
Yeah, resend it for me. Yeah, resend it.
Okay, well, there you go, John Doe. He says resend it. And
I can't promise anything, though. I mean, if it's a business, we'll see what... I mean, what is the business?
I don't know. He didn't say. But you'll have to check your... Zariana, or Jaki Kaminski. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I presume you're Polish. But he says very generously for $20. Thank you. Did not expect to be up that late, but life is full of surprises. Oh, and the guy who put out the menorah in the Polish parliament is now running for president. Still, this move will help solidify neocon fans and fans of the European Union at the top in power, as if there was already a candidate from his coalition. Why does everything feel like containment? Well, there's a great book written, ironically, by two Jewish political scientists that talk about like the history of conservatism and European movements. And they've always been meant to just police the further to the right.
Yeah.
And sometimes, there are people that are part of movements that are far right or that will play foil to this, knowingly or unknowingly. It's a nasty little system.
Well, it's like how it's like how the Tusk government's weaponizing already existing Polish nationalism to further EU and NATO ends in Ukraine, obviously. Although a lot of people in Poland, to their credit, are getting skeptical of the whole aims of the Ukrainian war. So, I mean, they got to deal with millions of Ukrainian refugees. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Sam153 says for $10 US. Thank you, Sam. He says, a snowy sneed to you all. What is up with this equal rights amendment nonsense? Phyllis Schlafly is spinning in her grave. So yeah, like Biden sent out a tweet saying that he's basically enshrining the ERA into law, although the ERA was never ratified into the Constitution of the United States at the state level. We owe a lot of that to Phyllis Schlafly. May she rest in peace. Peace be upon her. But like also, really what I think that this is, Sam, is basically just a backdoor abortion protections on the federal level. That's all that this really is, in my opinion.
Pretty much.
Try and backdoor as much abortion and Title IX stuff that you can. Cliff Jaded says, hello, friends. Hi from Singapore. I caught Enforcer from Sweden last Sunday here. He says, God bless Hyperborea for speed metal. Also, what is a wholesome place in the United States and Canada to visit that is relatively free of poor socioeconomic conditions?
Oh, God, that's a hard one. I would say Niagara Falls, but depends.
Here's the thing about visiting the United States. If you stay away from what are obviously known as bad parts of town, most places in America can be pretty nice. Avoid places like Gary, Indiana. Avoid places like certain parts of Chicago and Detroit, parts of San Francisco. But I mean, really, most places in America are nice to visit and are relatively good to go to, regardless if you're concerned about certain things that you might run into here. But really, I mean, it depends on what you want to see, Cliff. I don't know if you're more of a music guy. I would recommend Austin just because it has a good music scene. So does Nashville. But I mean, if you want to just see the sights, I mean, literally there are so many national parks and historic routes for statues, monuments, historical markers, battlefields. There's so much that you can see here in America that really doesn't require you to put up with the things you're concerned about.
Yeah. Someone mentioned Lee Kuan Yew in the chat. Some conservatard was saying that that Lee Kuan Yew would let in the H-1B visas. I'm like, whoa.
I don't think he would have.
He said he wanted his people to last for 1,000 years. So
yeah, I don't think so. We'll carry on here. Seneca sends us some Missouri lore. It says, Missouri lore, the Church of the Holy Family. The Church of the Holy Family is the oldest operating Catholic church in the United States. Built in 1699, it's built in a French log cabin style and has relics from John Paul II, which he's a saint in the Catholic Church, isn't he?
Yes.
Okay. The mass utensils were given to the church by King Louis XIV.
Wow.
And then he sends another super chat, and he says, also, I hope you guys don't mind me shilling, but I did a stream on French Missouri with Radlib yesterday called Missouri Francais. It's a 90,000, it's a 90,000 90% overview of a topic that I love. Well, yeah, well, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Radlib had Seneca on. Seneca's a donator on the stream. He's a very good guy. And yeah, so go check out Missouri Francais on Radlib's channel. I'm sure it'll be very good. I'm gonna have to go look that up.
How
Sean
much lore does Missouri have? Like,
how much? Yeah, well, I mean, every place has got a deep bit of history if you look hard enough.
Oh, yeah.
Sean Schaefer says, to answer the job debate is the article showing how Fortune 500 companies successfully hired only through DEI. Anyone who has not addressed this talking point shouldn't be talking at all. Yeah, the article about how like Fortune 500 companies hired like 96% people of color, and virtually all job growth has been to non-native, growth in terms of the economy. Absolutely awful. Charlie Mackey says, good evening. Well, good evening, Charlie Mackey. God bless and Godspeed to you. Our friend Owen Zaleski, although his name on here is Abolish Libtards. I'm a fan of the name. He says, hello, gents. I hope you are well. Please pray for a friend of mine who recently hurt his ankle, as well as for success of a job I applied for. Well, I will keep you in my prayers, Owen, as well as your friend. Gio, please do an art stream. And he says, also, where do you do the Q&A with Default Friend? Was it a live stream? God bless.
It's on her Substack, Default Wisdom. I don't know if it's out. Fucking look at it. She didn't at me, so I think it's open, and then she'll probably promote it. Default Friend. I'll check if it's out.
Yes, just consult with Default when in doubt.
Yeah, okay, I think it's out. Yeah, it's out. So I'll promote it probably tomorrow. I'll do like a Twitter, YouTube short. But yeah, it's a Q&A. It's really good. My first episode back, and we're trying to do a weekly thing. So yeah, there you go.
Okay. Well, I'm reading the next chat, and it throws me off because this word has been so awfully ruined. But I know that he just made a little piece of art with Tukey's mag. So, he literally Gio also just reposted the Q&A thing. So you can go see that. All Systems Gio is the title of the episode. So you've got that. Which is good. I'm trying to go find Owen Zaleski here on Twitter. That way I can, I'm scrolling through so much stuff because my godfather is on Twitter, and he doesn't know that I follow him. And he's an older gentleman. He's in his 60s, and I love him to death. But he's he just retweets a whole bunch of stuff, and I find it endearing. But anyways, so I'll carry on. I just had to scroll through a lot before I found Owen's Twitter account. So he sends another one, which is very kind of him. But he says, Gio, did you see? I'm not going to say this word just because it makes me want to die of cringe. He says, I'd at you. It's a artwork he did for you, Gio. He says, I'd at you on Twitter. If you guys want your own version of these things, you can contact me at OZ World Art on Twitter, which I will share on screen one of his lovely artworks on here. Share screen, So there you go. This is something that he had recently done for the Tukey's Mag guys, which I think is tastefully done, because the last episode of the Sidebar is incredibly horny. More so than what we usually get on here. But yeah, so I mean, it's good stuff. I'm always a fan. So this is Owen's art. So there you go. More, and there's Gio. Look at that. I like how Gabe is not trying to stare, but Gio has no problem looking at tits. The difference between millennials and Gen Z right there. Who is more aggressively horny?
Who's the chick?
I think just Tukey's version of their own like female persona, in the same way that there's a DHN. We have artists.
I love how Gabe, he's like trying so hard, he's sweating, and then like I'm just like, fuck it, I'm looking up.
Incredibly based.
Oh, God.
So if you want your version of yourself drawn like that, just let us know. So he says, great show to you both. God bless. And then last but not least, he says, last chat of the night. But I also want to give you guys a little bit of love for your great work on Do You Even Read and the Men of Art podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent work. I implore everyone to watch them.
Hopefully I can start releasing those House of Leaves episodes soon. But I have to do a bunch of other like genre reviews. Like I still gotta do the Bell Jar. I'm almost ready to record the one on the British film Naked, which is really great. Speaking of Rusty Cole, it's kind of like that. It's not like True Detective, but like in terms of the outlook, it's kind of like it's like a grittier, low life version of Rusty. So Oh man.
Well, yeah, and I'm ordering. I need to get my physical copy in.
Yeah.
But the next book that Dimes and I are covering for Do You Even Read will be On Resistance to Evil by Force.
Well, who's that by?
That is by I'll just tell you right before I totally by Ivan Ilin.
Oh, that book. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Nina Power did a whole like podcast on that once. Yeah.
Yeah.
With Jamer.
So I'm ordering my copy right now. Well, I already ordered it, but I mean, it's on its way, and then I'll be reading it soon enough with my my Twitter dollars. So there you go. That should be the last of the super chats tonight. Let me just double check YouTube here real quick. We're good there. Let me refresh good old Entropy. You gentlemen have been incredibly generous tonight, and I'm very thankful for all that you do. Thank you very much. Gio, what are you doing next week besides hosting the show?
Well, like that default episode is out, and my episode in Ray Pete's artwork and his essay on William Blake is also out. But next week I'll probably finally get around. If it's oh god, it's a lot of work. Finally, probably gonna release the Magnetic Dream episode, even though there's a lot of swear words. I have to add it out. Yeah, I have to add it out.
The Mag episode drops, man. You want a good time with a crazy poster who's incredibly intelligent? Go follow him. Woo!
Yeah, and I have to record again with him and probably Micah Paul, because I promised Micah Paul to record again. But then, Micah Paul this week was on Orange today, talking about Baudrillard. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, he was on Orange earlier today.
Yeah, it was a good stream.
Yeah, it was. I was live earlier today with Raging Mandrill. He's been reading Charles Burroughs' Days of Rage. We've been covering the Symbiotes Liberation Army and the kidnapping of Patty Hearst. So it's part one that I did within chapter 12 of the book is out. What?
Patty Hearst? Holy fuck.
Yeah. We're talking about the Days of Rage from the 70s.
Is she still alive?
Patty Hearst?
Yeah.
I doubt it. She... No way she is. She's only 70.
Jeez!
And she was
She's
married
pretty
to
fucking good for 72. Holy shit.
She was married to Bernard Shaw.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the San Francisco police officer. And husband to Patricia.
She looked pretty sexy with that AK-47 in that picture, eh?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, she was a traitor, but
I mean, no shit. Not my first choice. Did Winona Ryder ever play her in like a movie? I feel like that's like the perfect actress for.
They did a British one where she was like an actress, but it was like alluding to Patty Hearst, but it wasn't.
Well, oh well.
Maybe
not my cup of tea, to say the least. No, thank you. No, thank you. We're not fans here. Anyways, I'm covering that. I'm finishing audio editing, and probably the Stalin's War episode that I have recorded with Will Tanner will drop next week. And so will the Discourse Corner free episode. So I'll probably drop something on Monday, and then I'll drop the Discourse Corner episode towards the end. And that's the Halo CE episode. And then I think Dimes and I are
Halo episode.
Yeah, it's dropping this month. And then next month's Discourse Corner episode is with Dimes, and we're going to talk about the movie Skinamarink.
Oh man.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
Yeah. We talked about Skinamarink.
We did for a little bit. Yeah, we did an episode on it. But Dimes, apparently it's one of Dimes' favorite movies of the last 10 years. And
Whoa.
so I'm very curious to hear what he has to say about it, to say the least.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so we'll be live next week.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep.
Tuesday, same time. All right, then, gentlemen.
All right.
That brings us to the end.
God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet.
See you, gents.